and members of the public gallery. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale, which has been held this evening, Monday, the 19th of June 2023, in the Council Chambers Civic Centre at 6 Patterson Street, Mundijong. I declare this meeting open at 7:01 p.m. and welcome and acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Noongar people, and we pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to advise members of the gallery that the meeting is being audio recorded in accordance with council policy. If you are asking a public question or making a statement or deputation to the meeting, this will be audio recorded. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed. Item 1 on tonight's agenda is attendances and apologies. We have nil apologies for tonight's meeting. Item 2 is public question time. Item 2.1 is response to previous public questions taken on notice from the Ordinary Council meeting held on Monday, the 15th of May, 2023. Those questions appear in tonight's agenda and will be published as part of the minutes from tonight's meeting. Item 2.2 is public questions, which will commence at 7:02 p.m. Can I please ask Mr. and Mrs. Sandy and Graham Gilchrist of Darling Downs to come forward and read your questions this evening? It seems that they are not in attendance at present at the meeting, so a response will be provided in writing to them by the CEO. Could I please ask Mr. Bill Denham to come forward and read your questions this evening, please?
Councillors and Shire officers, my first question is, while I was a councillor, a request was made to upgrade the Clean Kentish Hall to accommodate a basketball competition, i.e. new backboards, etc. Is this facility now being utilised for a basketball competition?
Thank you for your first question this evening, Mr. Denham. I will ask the Director of Infrastructure Services to please respond to your question.
For you, Madam President. Thank you for the question, Mr. Denham. The hall has a marked out basketball court and hoops. If required, it's available to be booked through to basketball competitions through this space to go booking system. However, officers are not aware that there have been competitions at the hall in the last 2 years. The inside court is currently booked through the Space to Go website for 1 to 2 bookings at 1 hour each, training sessions per week.
If the Shire does not receive funding, state or federal, how much do the officers think would it cost the SJ to bring the netball facilities up to a standard acceptable to the community? That is the canteen and the courts, etc., the whole caboodle.
Thank you for your second question this evening, Mr. Denham. I'll ask the Chief Executive Officer to respond, please.
Thanks, Mr. Denham. We'd like to take that question on notice and provide you quite a detailed, accurate amount for that, rather than trying to estimate that this afternoon. So as long as you're okay with that, we'll take the question on notice. Thank you.
That's fine, Paul. Question 3, could I please have an update on the Oakwood Fire Station, as at one stage the relocation to Pony Place did not look possible regarding finances, land and all that? Just wondering where we're up to with that.
Thank you for your third question. I'll ask the Director of Community Engagement to provide you with a response to this question.
Thank you for the question. Council endorsed the 2 hectare portion of land on Pony Place as the location for the future station in August 2020 and approved the development application for the new facility in March 2023. The Shire has also been awarded a 10-year self-supporting loan as part of the 2021 local government grant scheme to fund construction of the new station. Planning and delivery of the station is now being progressed by officers.
Well done. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Denham. Could I please ask Miss Beverly Hunt to come forward and read your questions, please?
Gradually blend from existing large lot sizes to developers design small lot sizes. If so, how? As I've seen listed, the largest lots being 700,000 square metres per current 5 acre lot, which is not a gradual increase and does not blend to fit in the country bill. A gradual blend will be 2 acre lots, current 5 acre lots, then 1 acre, then 7.
Thank you.
Are they following the?
Thank you for your first question this evening. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the question, Ms. Hunt. The officer report discusses in detail the specific issue of design interface and notes that the current design is not considered to reflect an acceptable interface under the planning framework. The ministerial determination on the scheme amendment highlights the need for an acceptable design interface, and accordingly, I can confirm that this has been carefully assessed among all relevant planning issues, and this is a matter for council to consider at tonight's council meeting. Here.
Council tonight has an item before us where we will make a decision on the RAR report, which will then go to the Outer Metropolitan DAP in regards to this item. No, goes to the WAPC, sorry. So council has been requested to provide comment and recommendation to the WAPC on the subdivision, on the structure plan. Thank you for your second question, and I'll ask the Director of Development Services to please respond.
Thank you, Madam President. That was actually the third question, so with your indulgence, I'm happy to jump to the third question if you're not willing to ask your second question. Yep. So the second question you've asked. Okay. So in response to the second question, through you, Madam President, the current road design is an issue which officers have discussed in the report. Specifically, officers note that design should be orientated to a road network which enters from the northeast via an extension of Dolly Road and exits to the southwest via a deviation of Hopkinson Road. Officers have also assessed that road connectivity through to the southern equine area is not supported under the local planning framework, and this is a matter for council to consider at tonight's council meeting.
Thank you for your third question. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to please respond.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the question. So the current proposed design depicts 1,000 square metre lots interfacing to the south. You may have noticed in the report the sketch on page 167 of the agenda. That's an officer sketch, and that suggests that an interface needs to be 1 hectare lots and provision also made for a future equine trail consistent with council's adopted equine trails master plan. And this is a matter for council to consider at tonight's meeting. if you read the report, that's what the officer assessment has concluded. However, that will be ultimately a recommendation that council needs to consider this evening, and ultimately the Planning Commission will be the one charged with making the final decision on the structure plan. Thank you. Sorry, I'm speaking my normal voice into this normal microphone. So how's that? Can you hear that? Yeah? Okay, so the current design that was submitted for assessment depicts 1,000 square metre lots interfacing to the south. So the officer report contains a sketch which suggests the interface needs to be increased to 1 hectare lots, and provision also made for a future equine trail consistent with council's adopted equine trails master plan. This is a matter for council's consideration. Just so it's clear, local governments make a recommendation to the West Australian Planning Commission on all proposed structure plans. So the officer report contains a current officer recommendation, and that's what council will be considering this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Can I please ask Mrs. Lee Bond to come forward and ask your questions, please?
Council needs to explain what $1 million has been specifically spent on in the Keenan Street Whitby project in 2010, or explain what this amount of money was spent on in the Whitby area in 2010.
Thank you for your first question this evening, Mrs. Bond. I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to please respond to your question.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Mrs. Bond. I'll need to take that question on notice.
What required local government courses have councillors Richard Atwell completed and proof is required? What reason do they claim for not completing these courses, and why hasn't Councillor Strange completed the local government diploma, for which she now wants $3,745? Why hasn't 3 years been long enough to follow the rules?
Thank you for your second question, Mrs. Bond. I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to respond, please.
So the transcript of academic records provided by Walga contained with Shire records states that Councillor Atwell has completed the mandatory training required under Section 5.126 of the Local Government Act 1995 and a number of short courses. Councillor Rich has completed the mandatory training required under Section 5.126 of the Local Government Act 1995, the Diploma of Local Government and numerous short courses. In accordance with Section 1.27 of the Local Government Act 1995, annually, the Shire publishes a report detailing the training completed by all councillors at the end of the financial year, which can be found on the Shire's website. Councillor Strange has advised that in October 2022, she was awarded the Jackie Dodd Scholarship to complete the Walga Diploma of Local Government elected members. In this case, while the training is not completed, the assessment is not overdue. That will be a matter for council tonight.
Why is the ratepayer paying for the food trucks at events in Shire when previously it did not cost the ratepayer? And why are we engaging in this expensive company? They are from the northern suburbs. What was wrong with the local business who previously provided this service at no cost?
Thank you for your third question, Mrs. Bond. I will ask the Director of Community Engagement to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Barefoot Entertainment previously ran food truck events called Dinner at Dusk within the Shire in 2018-19, but have since discontinued delivering their Dinner at Dusk events in the Shire. Community feedback through the Shire's Community Perception Scorecard and event surveys highlighted the community's desire for food truck style events. In response to community feedback, the Shire introduced the Food Truck Fiesta series in 2021 as part of our community events calendar, and it has become a popular event with our community, with more than 9,700 people attending across the 7 events in 2022-2023. Engagement of an external contractor is required to arrange the delivery of the Food Truck Fiesta series. This is a comprehensive service which includes event management, complete coordination of food truck vendors, minimum of 2 staff for event day, go-to cup service, which is the recycling program or reuse program for plates and cups on the day, first aid services, movie screens and licenses for selected events, performers, activities and PA systems for selected events, lighting for selected events, and portable toilets where required. The Shire has continued to support local businesses through the Food Truck Fiesta series, with 15 local vendors attending our 2022-23 events, and of the 13 market stalls at the 2022 Christmas Street Party event, 12 were from the Shire and surrounding areas. The events calendar for 2023-2024 will be considered by Council at tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Bond. Can I please ask Miss Lisa Brazier to come forward and read your questions, please?
Good evening, councillors. Lisa Brazier, PO Box 80, Mundijong. My first question is, at the December 2020 LCM, I asked which sitting councillors hold a valid diploma of local government or diploma of governance or hold accreditation with the Australian Institute of Company Directors, and the question was taken on notice. And a written response was sent to me advising that the Shire does not have a record of all qualifications at that particular time. My question is to the Shire President, have you undertaken the Diploma of Local Government course in your time on Council? And if so, did you complete the course and thus you now hold a valid Diploma of Local Government certification?
Thank you for your first question this evening, Ms. Brazier. I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to respond to your question, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Mr. Brazier. The Shire President's transcript of academic record provided by the West Australian Local Government Association states that Councillor Michelle Rich completed the required elements of the Diploma of Local Government in September 2021.
Thank you. My second question then is, if you hold a valid Diploma of Local Government, are you able to present the certification to the Council support officers?
Thank you for your second question, Ms. Brazier. I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to respond, please.
So as above, yes, the Shire holds a transcript of academic record for Councillor Rich for the Diploma of Local Government.
Thank you. My third question is, over the years, councillor training has been a very contentious issue, starting many, many years ago, with the continual questioning on whether previous councillor Barry Irvin had completed training which the Shire had paid for. This was finally reported back to council that he had not completed training and had not repaid any monies, and that the Shire could not recoup the funds as he was no longer a councillor. Coupled with my questions back in December 2020, this has seen Council Policy 3.34 adopted and subsequently reviewed and modified twice. Within the policy today, it now very clearly states that councillors shall, following the completion of training, provide evidence of the completion of training to the Council Support Officer. At the 20th of March 2023 OCM, when Councillor Coles's AICD training was questioned, staff advised that he had completed this training. How was this able to be confirmed by staff?
Thank you for your third question, Ms. Brazier. I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to please respond.
Thank you for the question. So the response provided at 20th of March 2023 Ordinary Council meeting stated that in researching a response to public question at a recent council meeting, officers contacted all training providers that had provided training to councillors in the period posed by that question, where certificates of completion were not immediately availably sourced from Shire held records. In this case, the Australian Institute of Company Directors advised that while its privacy policy prevented disclosing details or providing a copy of the certificate, they confirmed verbally that the councillor had completed the training. Since answering this question taken at the meeting, officers have not made any subsequent attempts to confirm completion or otherwise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Could I please ask Mr. Norm Anderson to come forward and read your questions, please?
Good evening, councillors. My first question is, what licences do permacast facility require to operate?
Thank you for your first question. I will ask the Director of Development Services to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the question. So the subject land is zone development, and the associated structure plan designates the land for industrial development. And according to the Shire's scheme, development approval is required to be granted for a general industry, which is the use class for concrete product making. Separate to this, the State Government Department of Water and Environment Regulation regulates emissions and discharges from the construction and operation of all prescribed premises through a works approval and licensing process under Part 4 of the Environmental Protection Act. Premises known as cement products manufacturing, which produce more than 100 tonnes a year, are a prescribed premise, and therefore the Environmental Protection Act requires a works approval and a licence to operate. Also on the subject land is a mobile concrete wet batching plant, which is a different form of a general industry, and also adjoining the subject land is a storage and laydown area that also requires development approval to operate.
Thank you. My second question is, have they obtained the appropriate licences to operate?
Thank you for your second question. I will ask the Director of Development Services to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the question. So there is no development approval issued by the Shire for the general industry concrete product making development. The Shire, however, is currently in receipt of an application which seeks retrospective development approval for such. Given the estimated cost of this retrospective development, it is required to be determined by the Development Assessment Panel, not the Shire, according to the planning framework. In respect of the mobile concrete batching plant, this received development approval on the 13th of December 2021. In respect of the retrospective storage and laydown area, which is on the corner of Norman Road and Southwest Highway, this received retrospective development approval on the 9th of June of this year. According to the submission received from the DWER regarding the retrospective development application for the concrete product making, they state that their department has not received an application for a works approval or licence for the facility described in the development approval application to date.
Thank you. My third question is, if they have not, which governing body regulates this and why are they able to operate without them?
Thank you for your third question. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to please respond.
Thank you for the question. Just so I have sufficient time to research the suite of regulations required, I will take this question on notice.
Thank you. Just to inform members of the public gallery that have their questions taken on notice this evening, a written response will be provided and mailed out to you once the officers have the information available. Can I please ask Mr. John McEwen to come forward and ask your questions, please?
Evening, Councillor. First question is, why is operation allowed to operate at the above premises, which was zoned for light industry, rather than the site at West Mundijong, which was zoned for heavy industry, and further away from residents and sensitive areas?
Thank you for your first question. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to provide a response, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the question. So following compliance action being initiated by the Shire, the applicant submitted an application seeking retrospective development approval for their concrete product making aspect of the operations. In terms of suitability, this is currently being assessed as part of the concrete product making retrospective development application, which is also subject to community advertising, and we strongly encourage all members of the community to make a submission.
Second question is, what buffer zone has been applied to this facility?
Thank you for your second question. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to please provide a response.
Thank you, Madam President. So at this stage, there is no statutory buffer in place. However, this issue will be considered as part of the assessment of the current retrospective development application, which is underway.
Third question is, a buffer zone of 300 meters seems to be applied using the batching plant as the core. The smallest buffer zone for this type of operation, based on EPA regulation, according to appears to be 500 meters and up to 1.5 kilometers. For loading and unloading, the buffer zone is meant to be 1 to 2 kilometers. How is the rest of the property not considered in the application of the buffer zone, as noise and dust does not only come from the area set aside for the batching plant?
Thank you for your third question. I will ask the Director of Development Services to provide a response, please.
Thank you, Madam President. And just to reiterate the previous points, officers are currently assessing a retrospective development application, and this will be considered as part of the assessment of the current proposal. Thank you.
Could I please ask Nicole Marriott to come forward and ask your questions, please? It seems that she is not in attendance at the meeting. A written response will be provided to her via the Shire CEO. Could I please ask Miss Karen McEwen to come forward and ask your questions, please?
My questions as well relate to the Blanca facility on Robertson Road. What are the components and chemicals in the concrete and other products that they make?
Thank you for your first question. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to provide a response, please.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for the question. I would seek to take that on notice just so I can do a proper degree of research and give you an informed answer. Thanks.
What are the effects of this operation on the groundwater and rainwater tanks in the area?
Thank you for your second question. I will ask the Director of Development Services to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam President. And yes, thank you for the second question. I would like to take that one on notice as well, if that's possible, to do a full degree of research on that.
My third question is similar. What contaminant are affected, and what are the expected long-term effects on health?
Thank you for your third question. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to provide a response, please.
Thank you, Madam President. And yes, thank you for the question. And similarly, I'll need to take that one on notice and provide a response to you. Thank you.
Could I please ask Mr. Jeff Marriott to come forward and ask your questions, please? It seems that Mr. Marriott is not in attendance, so a written response will be provided to him via the CEO. Could I please ask Mrs. Leanne Schneider to please come forward and read your questions?
Good evening, everyone. Question number one. Can you please advise what is the longest time frame that an applicant in the Clare Morris estate Serpentine Shire, has been made to endure in relation to submitting a development application for a shed from initial application date to the date of approval?
Thank you for your first question. I'll ask the Director of Development Services to provide a response, please.
Thank you, Madam President. And yes, I will need to take that one on notice, please.
Thank you.
Question number 2. Is it common practice in written communications between the Serpentine Jarrahdale Shire staff members to refer to Serpentine Jarrahdale Shire ratepayers in relation to their occupation, for example, welder, plumber, electrician, etc., and not their name on SJ Shire documents, as this can be seen as defamatory? For those that don't understand the meaning of defamation, to be defamatory, the material has to be published, communicated by any means, including written, orally, pictorially, to at least one person other than the person making the claim. The intention of the publisher does not matter, and liability for defamation can arise even from unintended errors.
Thank you for your second question. I will ask the Chief Executive Officer to please respond.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the question. No, it's not common practice, and I'd be concerned if it's occurring. So if you've got examples of that, I'd be interested in hearing about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That concludes public question time this evening at 7:32 p.m. Item 3 is public statement time. Can I please ask Miss Alicia Denham to come forward and read your statement, please?
Thank you, councillors and Shire officers, for this opportunity. My name is Alicia Denham and I'm the President of Serpentine Jarrahdale Netball Association, and I'm speaking on behalf of the members and families of the association. Netball is the biggest team sport in Australia, played by over 1.2 million people, and we live in the fastest growing shire in WA with one of the highest proportions of young families within the nation. The SJ Netball Association currently has 295 junior players. Each Saturday during winter, we have these 295 registered players playing our competition, consisting of all sizes, junior ages and ability. Our aim is to provide a safe, enjoyable social competition. Tonight, we have some of our players and parents here representing the association. We have a couple from our under 13s, we've got Ari here from our under 7s, and a few of our under 17 girls. To cater and attract very good players, we, the association, pay for our development teams to play at Langford against the very best players within the region. Currently, our 13s and 15s play Division 1, with the 13s currently second on the ladder. We also have a couple from our teams here, Ruby and Emma. We also recently had a 12-year-old selected in the WA state team. The SJ Netball Association donated approximately $15,000 into the original idea of Sports Hub over 10 years ago. This was for the initial feasibility studies and was more than any other club. This then progressed to the current Keenan precinct. This $15,000 so far has had not 1 cent of return or benefit to the members. Our courts are over 60 years old and worn out. Councillor Atwell's sister can even remember playing on them as a child. Approximately 10 years ago, the surface was repainted. This is now worn out with the original basketball and netball lines now visible. Huge cracks are evident on the courts. Water flows through one of the courts when it rains, and mesh is now showing. The canteen is over 40 years old and needs completely overhauling, as we still have laminated bench tops and no exhaust fans. The Central Senior Football and Netball Club have no home games in netball, as our courts are deemed unsafe and unsuitable for their competition. We have invited Netball WA to come down to look as we seek their support. In our opinion, the current facilities are hindering more young children within the Shire wanting to come and play netball. No one can underestimate the value of sport in maintaining a sense of community. Many experts are now realising the full benefits of sport in maintaining both mental and physical well-being. As you would all be aware, an invitation has been extended to all councillors to visit our facilities, including the courts and canteen while in operation. I'm sure you all agree our facilities are substandard, and we ask you to help fix this with respect to advocacy item being considered by council tonight. It is imperative that a new netball facility be placed as #1 advocacy item for both state and federal elections. Other sports in SJ are already catered for with facilities that can cater to their current needs. Councillors, if you are genuinely concerned about the welfare of our children, please, on behalf of the children and families of this Shire, We ask that you prioritise netball so that we can continue to provide a safe and inviting experience for the community. Finally, I'd like to thank our parents and children for their support of this statement tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, I'm just going to open the door again. I know Councillor Cole's just closed. Happy to close the outside doors, but I think we should keep that. I think because otherwise it might imply the meeting's closed and the meeting needs to be open. Happy to turn the air conditioning off. Members of the public are cold or something if that needs to be done.
Thank you, Ms Denham, for your statement. Can I please ask Mr Michael van den Doel to come forward and read your statement, please?
Good evening, Madam President, Michelle Rich and councillors. May I refer you to the footpath petition submitted to the SJ Shire Council late last year. On behalf of the petitioners, I ask you again to urgently consider this matter in your budget workshops so that the proposed works, or perhaps half of the works, can be completed in the new financial year. And not only will the footpaths make a big difference to the lives of the residents on Adonis Street and Richardson Street, but the residents living on the roads exiting onto Adonis and Richardson will all gain a safe route to exercise and will gain access to the primary school and local shops. Having a footpath on these two roads will complete a link route right around Munijong, starting along Patterson Street, down Cochrane Street, along Adonis Street and up Richardson Street, past the local primary school and back to Patterson Street. Again, we ask you please to consider doing the whole works as one project in the coming financial year, as we are conscious of the rising costs of construction and don't wish it to be more expensive than it has to be. I get stopped quite frequently by local residents who are part of the petition and asked how it's going. I'd love to tell them that it's been given the green light, and with your help, we can make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please ask Miss Kylie Shadler to come forward and read your statement, please?
Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm an employee of the Shire who does not work in the planning or regulatory functions of the organisation. I have not been involved in the assessment of the proposal or preparation of the agenda item, and my comments do not constitute professional advice of an officer. This local structure plan is majorly flawed. It gives absolutely no regard to the character of surrounding area. The Minister for Planning advised when determining the MRS amendment to give regard to existing amenity of the locality and appropriate transition arrangements to be considered to the abutting urban zoning to the north and special rural areas to the south. All the things are wrong with this local structure plan. Density, amenity, road access, school planning, bushfire planning. R10 is not a suitable transition to 5-acre lots. My northern boundary abutting the site is nearly 200 metres long. R10 is a minimum lot size of 875 square metres with an average of 1,000 square metres. If I was a gambling woman,
I would put money on those lots being the smallest they could possibly be. The Shire planning officers, Water Corp, Department of Education, Department of Fire and Emergency Services, the Public Transport Authority, Main Roads, DWOR, all have concerns. Not to mention the 47 residents who made a submission against it. The proponent in response, and sources from the summary of submissions, states, our client acknowledges and values the rural nature of the locality, which has ultimately influenced the vision for the project. I'm sorry, I don't see it and I don't buy it. Significant engagement was undertaken between the Shire and the developer as evidenced on pages 154 to 156. As adjoining landowners to the site, we are disappointed that the developer did not heed their advice. They have missed an epic opportunity to provide a unique rural-style residential development that fits well within its surroundings rather than sticking out like a sore thumb. In conclusion, this community values a rural living lifestyle as evidenced in attachment 1, community engagement outcomes of item 10.4.1. This type of local structure plan can only result in a high-density ghetto trapped between an A-class nature reserve and special rural residential properties. I respectfully request that Council supports unanimously the officer's recommendation to the WA Planning Commission to refuse the local structure plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I please ask Mr. Jan Divjaga to come forward and read your statement this evening?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, councillors. Also not periphery Hopkinson Road. My statement is I bought a block and built my house on Cardiff Siding Road during 2008 and 2009 in compliance with strict strata rules that were specified at the time. It's like a minimum square meterage of 200 meters. It needed to be farm style with verandas around the house, etc., to blend into the farm style and the rural feel of the environment. As a person, I accept that Perth is growing and understand the need for development and the extreme growth it brings to the field region, and I'm not opposing some development on Lot 33 Hopkinson Road. Current form of the structure plan, however, raises major concerns to me. One, main access road from the estate leading to the high school is proposed in the current form of the proposed structure plan to provide entrance for all traffic to and from the estate less than 20 meters from my block and less than 32 meters from my front door. Two, the lot sizes proposed within the estate are small, very small, and are great for increasing profitability and boosting the cash in the balance sheet of the developer RJ Noble. B. Structure plan makes use of Cardiff Siding Road as the main entrance to the estate with no public open space provided buffer between the larger rural blocks on the northern side of the road. Then, following the consultation with Mr. Peter Dockett of RJ Noble, it's clear to me that the developer will not seriously consider changes to my concerns, and therefore request that the Shire refuse the structure plan as presented by RJ Noble as an orderly meeting. Then key changes on the structure plan should include, in my opinion, one, the changed position of the high school so that the main entrance into the estate is not right at my front door. Two, to increase the minimum lot sizes to reduce the number of people. And then three, to show some respect to the residents of Cardiff Siding Road who build their properties in compliance with strict rural conditions by providing public open space on the southern side of Cardiff Siding Road where trees can be planted to maintain some of the current rural nature.
Thank you. Could I please ask Miss Stacey Hooker to come forward and read your statement, please?
Good evening, President and councillors.
I'm also here to comment on lot 33 Hopkinson Road structure plan. It is clear from reading the summary of submissions to council regarding lot 33 Hopkinson Road that in no way should this development proceed in its current form. There is complete disregard from the developer to the surrounding rural and lifestyle areas. I speak on behalf of the immediate residents on the southern boundary of lot 33. These beautiful properties were all purchased for many millions with rural living as a priority. In response to concerns over R10 lot sizes along our boundary, the developer states the Minister for Planning did not stipulate a minimum lot size. So I asked the developer, why would it seem appropriate to allot 10 plus neighbours to the back of our 5-acre blocks? You state that the windrow of trees provides enough visual cover to disguise the transition. I beg to differ. Please come and stand along the southern boundary and observe that the tree canopy is 20 metres high in the air. There is absolutely no privacy from anything, let alone security or safety from the increase in crime that will most definitely occur with an urbanised development of cheap housing. The southern boundary fence line is currently barbed wire and star picket. I asked the developer, what exactly will you replace this fence line with? It cannot stay in its current state. Imagine the legalities involved with safety, possessions, humans and animals crossing this boundary so readily. I agree with our fellow neighbour on Bagup Loop. I would much rather have a 10-foot high limestone wall built the entire way along my boundary than have the cheapest version of rural style fencing replacing what is there now. At least we could have complete privacy, safety and security from many thousands of people that none of us want to see on the other side. Secondly, the structure plan is said to meet bushfire zone planning recommendations. We all know in reality that the biggest bushfire threat is going to come during summer with a howling easterly blowing a fast-moving fire through Cardup Nature Reserve. With the usual wind speed experienced there would barely be time for emergency services to warn residents of an impending fire, let alone evacuate 3,000 plus people on the proposed connecting roads out. I implore with the council to reject the current structure plan and the number of proposed residents, and please reconsider lot 33 to be developed into special rural lots. In conclusion, I request that council support the rejection of this development in its current state and reconsider rural lifestyle lots in its place. It would be criminal for the council to ignore an almost unanimous voice of opposition to this development. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. Can I please ask Mrs. Lee Bond to come forward and read your statement this evening?
Council wants to hit the ratepayer for more money under the guise of FOGO. Anybody can reduce food waste and enhance their gardens at the same time. You don't need council to find a useless excuse to charge more for rubbish collections. Many in the Shire already pay way too much for waste collection. For their bins, they only go out once a month or more. It has already been established by other councils that FOGO is useless, and some councils are already getting rid of it. Behaviour at the electors meeting was a disgrace, and shame on those who provided this spectacle for their own entertainment, and shame on those who helped create the obnoxious theme.
Thank you for your statement, Mrs. Bond. Can I please ask Mr. Norm Anderson to come forward and read your statement, please?
I don't actually have a statement, but the noise from last Friday night that didn't finish until 7 p.m. and it was like a helicopter landing in your backyard. My wife has recorded it on my phone, and it's just ongoing. There should be a time limit that they are to start and finish work and reduce of the noise.
Thank you. Can I please ask Miss Karen McEwen to read a statement from Miss Maureen Tucci, please?
Democrat site. Both my husband and I are in poor health at the moment. Could not attend the meeting tonight. However, we could not. However, we would like the concerns noted. The vibration from the vibrators on the beam walls is affecting our way of life. My heart starts to beat in time with the vibration, thus weakening over time. As I have had a heart ablation, I would not want my heart to start beating irregularly again. Our windows shake with the vibration as well. The working hours of the site are not conducive to happy life for us, as the tapping noise quite often starts at 6 a.m. and the site sometimes doesn't shut down until 8 p.m. Last week, the vibrations were on the go, on and off, till 7 p.m. When we bought our block, we were assured by the council the blocks opposite us were zoned light industrial, i.e. storage units that would be minimal noise. I'm sure you realize that we were not expecting to live in a heavy industrial estate for the autumn of our lives. We are very concerned. Yours faithfully, Maureen.
Thank you for reading that statement out on her behalf. That concludes public statement time this evening at 7:52 p.m.
Madam President, I have a question, if I may.
Councillor Bias.
To the CEO, I'd ask for some guidance concerning standing orders. With respect to the order of business, I note that we've got some in the gallery with young families. I'm sure they would like to go home and put kids to bed. Are we able to move 10.5.1 concerning the statements that were made about the netball advocacy to before deputations, noting that I haven't seen any deputations on the item?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Bias. Item 3.4 of the standing orders says, unless otherwise decided by the council, the order of the business at any ordinary council should be as follows. And so item 3.8 of the standing orders allow the Shire President to change the order of any matter. But my suggestion would be if the council was of a mind to consider item 10.5.1 earlier than what's there, noting there's no deputations, then a resolution of council could bring that matter to effect probably most appropriately.
Thank you, CEO. I'm happy to move that motion that council considers item 10.5.1 at this point in the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Bias. Do I have anybody to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously.
Madam President, the Manager of Governance just makes a good point. Given that council hasn't actually formally considered any declarations of interest, maybe it's just worth asking councillors whether there are any declarations of interest in item 10.5.1. Now, council's resolved to move it forward before the matter is considered.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. There is one declaration of interest from myself, Councillor Michelle Rich, is a declaration of impartiality interest in item 10.5.1 advocacy priorities 2025 state and federal government election. The nature of the interest is I'm a long-term supporter of the Keenan Park project. The extent of the interest is I'm a long-term supporter of the Keenan Park project. Can I please have a mover for this item?
Madam President, I'd like to move my alternate motion that I circulated late last week. I believe it was for this one. So as per the officer's recommendation with the insertion of the word destination at paragraph 5 as per the screen.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this motion?
Not opposed, Madam President, but I would like to ask a question, if I may.
Thank you, councillor Bias.
Thank you, Madam President. My question's to the CEO. Just noting dot point 3 concerning the reconsideration of the election priority and that being related to the netball courts. Can the CEO just confirm for the gallery that that does address their concerns about ensuring that the Shire is advocating for funding for the courts, please?
Through you, Madam President, thanks for the question, councillor Bias. I guess I would say that when putting that recommendation together, the officers' report together, officers found it would be challenging to start advocating for further funding for Keenan Park until the water issue was resolved, which allowed construction of Stage 1A to commence, which is the 2 ovals and the pavilion. But once that issue was resolved, the motion that's been moved by councillor Coles and seconded by councillor Duggan suggests that matter be reconsidered, and the netball courts then get reconsidered at that point of whether they are an election priority for the 2025 state and federal government elections.
Supplementary, if I may, Madam President.
So
therefore, I've misread that. So that's for council to reconsider, not necessarily our partners in state and federal. Can you give me, I guess, a rough timeline on what you would suggest is when it's likely we will know the outcome of those water studies for council to reconsider that? And are you confident that there's sufficient time for it then to be subsequently included in the advocacy documentation?
Through you, Madam President. So the reason for identifying the election priorities relatively early, as outlined in the report, is to allow us time to do any feasibility work or business cases that are required, or concept plan development that are required in preparation for 2025. I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Infrastructure, that probably within the next 6 months we should have a decision on, or some further clarity on, the water issue at Keenan Park for Stage 1A. So that would still, I would think, provide time if the council was of a mind to make that a priority at that time. There would need to be some work done and funding done of concept plans and those sort of things as outlined in the report, and council would need to consider that funding that at that time. But I don't think that would rule that out if the council wanted to do that.
One final question, if I may, Madam President.
Councillor Bias.
So I guess my next question relates to what assurances does council have that the officers will come back on this one? Like, do we have a degree of certainty that the advocacy documentation won't proceed until at least this matter's reconsidered? Is the condition firm enough in that guidance, or would you see it being made a bit more explicit as beneficial for providing guidance to officers?
I think that at this point in time, it's probably quite clear. You'll note that the allocations in the budget are for progressing things like the peer review of the hypergrowth roads and planning for the expansion of the SJ Recreation Centre courts and the caravan park at Jarrahdale. So I think that's fairly clear, but the council could amend that if they wanted to amend that, and I would be assured that there'd be councillors who want to bring back a notice of motion if the officers hadn't brought that forward, and we'd probably bring that up when the matter come forward for council when the water issue is resolved.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. No, I'm quite satisfied with that. Thank you, Madam President. I'm not opposed to the motion.
Thank you, councillor Bias. Mr. Martin, I have a few questions. You have stated that there would need to be some work done and money budgeted to allow this item to move forward in the coming budget for it to be included as an advocacy position. What amount would need to be budgeted, and has that been included in the draft budget of the Shire at this stage?
So no, nothing's been included in the draft budget at this stage. Other than a concept plan for the entire site, no funding has been allocated, no work has been done on developing the netball courts to a point where they could be advocated for at that time. Officers would generally think that a concept would need to be prepared, and that some revised costing would need to be done to update the costings that were done at that time. And you'll see on page 283, a concept would need to be done to incorporate all those elements that were there. But I think that would be a matter the council could consider either at a mid-year budget review or at a future point in time if it wished. That would be my suggestion, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Supplementary question. If it's not included in the draft budget and it's not allowed for in the budget that is adopted by council in coming months, how much hope do we hold that this would make an advocacy position if the water issues at Keenan Park for stage 1A are resolved?
Well, the council hasn't actually considered its budget yet. If the council wants to include that in the budget, it can, or it could include a motion here to add to point 4 to progress to request that funding be included into the draft budget at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. That being the case, I would like to move an amendment to this motion that we have before us, moved by Councillor Coles and seconded by Councillor Duggan, that a point D is added to condition 4. And I would like some help with the wording, please, from the Director of Corporate Services to make sure that funding is available through the Shire budget for the 2023-24 financial year to allow for the planning works to occur for this item.
Well, Madam President, if I could be so bold as to suggest, all you'd need to do if council wanted to do that would be to make point D similar to A, B and C, which would be netball courts at Keenan Park. That doesn't include the amounts for any of those, and that could be then added to that, which officers could bring up with a workshop with councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I'm happy to do that.
The amendment would be adding a point D to read netball courts at Keenan Park.
Thank you. Can I please call for a seconder to support the amendment? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this amendment?
Madam President, I'm not opposed per se, but I've got a question. I'm just wondering how that amendment sits in relation to paragraph 3. And obviously the sticking point here is the water issues for stage 1A are resolved. So what does that mean? Do we still ask or still put a request in the budget or put an allocation in the budget for the netball courts when we may not know the answer to the water issues at Keenan Park? I guess that's my question.
I think the answer to your question, Councillor Coles, is yes, because we don't know the answer to point 3. If point 3 is resolved and the water issues are resolved for stage 1A, then we need to be able to have the funding in the budget to make sure that the netball courts for Keenan Park can be progressed as an advocacy position for the state and federal elections due to be held in and around 2025. If we do not allow funding in the budget and we resolve the water issues for stage 1A, then the progression of the netball courts would not be able to move ahead for advocacy for the state or federal election.
Thank you, Madam President.
I will call again. Is there anybody opposed to this amendment? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. As the mover of the amendment, as we've heard from our Netball Association this evening, they actually do play a crucial role in our Shire, providing a sporting outlet, especially for females and young females in our area. As a council, we are tasked with the strategic direction and planning for our area into the future. And part of that task involves being able to finance that strategic direction to allow it to occur. It would be remiss of council if we had point 3 as written before us this evening and resolved the water issues that we have with stage 1A and then had no ability to move forward to advocate on behalf of the Netball Association and all the kids that play netball because we haven't funded the work that needs to be done to allow the advocacy to occur. If the amendment to this motion is upheld and we consider the funding in the budget for the 2023-24 financial year and the water issues are not resolved, the money still sits there and can be reallocated to another project or to something else within the area. If we don't put the money aside in the budget and we resolve the water issues, we miss the opportunity to be able to advocate and gain a large amount of money into the Shire. The figures sitting there at the moment are around the 13 million to provide the netball facilities. Obviously, that would need to be reassessed, but it would still be somewhere up around that figure. If we got the funding through the 2025 election cycles at either state or federal level, we would most likely still be looking at a 2028 time frame to see work start on the netball facility. If we miss the 2025 election cycle for netball, we would be looking at late 2028, 2029 for the next election cycle where funding becomes available. And then that would push out any work most likely to 2032 before we saw any work start to provide this badly needed facility within the Shire. So in my view, I say it that if we provide the funding in the coming budget to allow the works to happen, if and when we resolve the water issues for stage 1A, it puts us in a very, very good position to advocate on behalf of netball in the Shire and gain the funding required to provide new facilities for that sport. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Would you like to speak or reserve?
I know, Madam President, I'll have a few words. I entirely agree with what you said there. As we've been informed today, netball is the biggest sport, team sport in Australia. And I must say I didn't know that. I would have thought that AFL was, but I'll agree with that one. And it shows that they must be doing something right. So for us to not give this every opportunity would be extremely remiss. Those netball courts, as was stated in there, and I can verify that as fact, that they have been there for a number of years, a large number of years, and are at the end of their usefulness, as well as the fact that there's very little parking. It's congested over there. The canteen is outdated. And I think for us not to at least attempt to try and get this group going would be extremely remiss. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Councillor Duggan, would you like to speak against, please?
Thanks, Madam President. Thanks, Councillor Atwell, for your comments. First and foremost, this is by no means a way of not supporting our netballers. I commend them for coming this evening. I specifically commend all the volunteers with netball and all our other sporting groups that do work so hard to support our kids. And I would never for a moment want this to be seen as a way of not supporting them. It is, however, more a way of being conservative. To me, taking money from our ratepayers in the next budget to put towards something that may actually not be able to be achieved is not the right thing for our ratepayers. There is no reason why, if we do sort the water problems out, which, let me point out, have been going on now for some years, if we do manage to sort them out, then there is no reason why we can't look at a budget amendment to look at bringing that in either in the 23-24 budget or putting it into the early 24-25 budget. Our officers are going to have their hands full with getting the work organised for the roads, the expansion of the rec centre and the caravan park and visitor centre for Jarrahdale. So I cannot see it actually slowing down the process if we do add the netball courts in the early 24-25 budget. Hopefully by then the other three areas are all sorted. The water issue with stage 1A is sorted, and then we can go full ahead into sorting out this netball courts problem, because certainly it is a problem and it does need to be addressed. But I do not feel that taking money from our ratepayers now is the best way for addressing that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for the motion?
Madam President, just a question, if I may.
Councillor Mack?
I'd just like to ask perhaps of the CEO. We've heard here about the dire need for netball, and we seem to be delayed by this water issue with stage 1A. Is there a possibility to alter the master plan to actually construct netball as 1A and prioritise pushing that through while the delays of water are being dealt with?
Madam President, that's certainly a question that's been asked that we are looking into. The government has provided funding, though, for 1A being the construction of 2 ovals and the pavilion. So if the council wanted to do that, that would need to be considered as a separate matter, I would suggest, and would be a request to the government to make the funding that's already been committed for change it from AFL and cricket ovals to netball courts, which would be dependent on the council deciding that, and also the government agreeing, obviously.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Councillor Mack. Is there any councillor that would like to speak for the amendment?
Sorry, Madam President, I've got a question, if I may. Just my thoughts have been activated after Councillor Mack's question. What would that mean in terms of money to advocate? Would we need to put an advocacy piece together if that was to be the case, that water was not available? And as we've already heard, it's been going on for some time. If that was a decision, there was no water there and we wanted 1A to be netball and other sort of hard surfaces, would we need money in the budget to advocate to the government for that?
There are some funds allocated in the budget for general advocacy for the election priorities, but I would think that we would need to have some, if we were to do that, we'd need to have some concept plan developed to show how it would look, yes. But the council would need to be agreeing to that at that point in time first, though. So you wouldn't necessarily want to go and ask without some concept plan developed and some idea of how that timing would be met, which is the issues we're currently exploring.
Sorry, if I can, subsequent question through the chair, maybe to the CEO or the Director of Development Services, or even to the Director of Community Engagement. Our current budget in terms of advocacy, what have we got in the draft budget for advocacy? And the money that we have allocated in the draft budget for advocacy, would that be enough to cover the specific advocacy for the netball courts at Kiernan?
Madam President, the draft budget, as I understand, the Director of Corporate Services can correct me if I'm wrong, includes the $60,000. Sorry, includes the $20,000 to do the peer review of the hypergrowth roads, as on page 281. It includes $60,000 to progress with the expansion of the basketball courts at the rec centre, which is some environmental studies because there need to be some clearing to make that happen, a concept development and a revised costing. And then there's an amount of, wrong, 25,000, I think, for general advocacy or advocating for the entire election. So it does not include currently any funding that would progress with the netball courts. Does that answer your question?
It does, but another question, if I may, that 25,000 could then be used, general advocacy, pending the outcome of the water exploration, the water issues for Kiernan Park. Netball.
I think if the council wanted to advocate for that at that point in time, further funding would need to be allocated, or some funding would need to be allocated, because development of a concept plan and revising the costings would cost more than the 25.
So how much, sorry if I can ask another question, how much would you think we would need this advocacy for netball to be at Kiernan Park?
To be honest, I can't remember the exact figure. There was a business case prepared, and the Director of Infrastructure might help me out here. I think the figure was about $400,000 for the development of a concept and costing for the netball courts, but I would certainly be more than 25,000. But if council agreed to the amendment tonight, we could do some research on that. We haven't actually done probably quite detailed research of exactly what that needs to be at this point in time.
And it is a shame that these things aren't mentioned at Q&As, because it would have saved us some heartache. But so suffice to say, at this point in time, we've got no idea. One comment is 25,000, to be more than that, but less than 400,000. That seems an exorbitant amount of money for a plan, $400,000.
Well, I think there'd need to be the development of a concept plan for the 15 netball courts. So the development of a concept plan for the basketball courts and extensions costing $20,000 for 2 courts. So we're talking about a fairly large facility with some site preparation, investigation, with car parking and lighting and covering of some of those courts. So certainly it'd be more than 25,000, but I probably wouldn't like to put an exact figure on it right at this point in time.
Another question, if I can, through the chair to the Director of Corporate Services. An extra $30,000 in the budget, what does that mean for a rate increase for ratepayers in terms of percentage?
Be a little over 0.1%.
Thank you.
Madam President, I'd like to speak for the motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor Bias.
I'll make my comments very, very brief. I think the exchange we've seen between Councillor Coles and the CEO actually highlights exactly why we do need to include this amendment. Council needs to be fully informed about what the budgetary implications of including this advocacy are, and this is not a commitment of funds. This is a commitment for the officers to go away, do that work, and for council to be able to make an informed decision when the budget rolls around. So, Madam President, I'm very comfortable with this amendment, and I think that the range of between $25,000 and $400,000 is exactly the reason why this amendment needs to go through. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bias. Is there any councillor who'd like to speak against the amendment? Councillors, I am happy to take the amendment straight to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried 7-2.
Madam President, can we please record the votes?
Minute Secretary, can we please have the votes recorded? Councillors, we'll now move back to the substantive motion that we have before us, which now includes point D under section 4, netball courts at Keenan Park. Councillor Coles has moved the alternate motion that we now have as a substantive motion, which has been seconded by Councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously.
Madam President, can I get from Councillor Coles as a mover of the motion a reason for the difference in the officer's recommendation, please?
Thank you, Madam. Sorry. Madam CEO. Thank you, Mr. CEO, through the chair. The reason being is to remove the water aspect of the destination playground. So to keep the options open in terms of various options for a destination playground and for it not to be specifically related to water. So I've waffled on a bit, but. Like that, Councillor Coles. To remove the water aspect of the destination playground and keep the options open in terms of a destination playground. So it doesn't, I don't want necessarily want water, sorry. It's up to, not to me, but to the community that doesn't have to have water part of it. So to keep the options open, not to necessarily have to have a water playground. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. We'll move back to item 4, which is petitions and deputations. We have nil petitions, so we move to the deputations, and I will please ask Miss Geordie Kane from Dorrell Mineral Sands to please come forward and present your deputation to council this evening.
Madam President, councillors and staff, for the opportunity to speak to you this evening in the Dorrell Mineral Sands and the company Heathbrook license. The purpose of speaking here tonight is to inform you of the company's plans to extend its current operations, which remain subject to EPA and Shire approval, and will add an additional 3 to 4 years to the current mine life. Heathbrook Mineral Sands mine has been operating in the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale and the Shire of Murray since 2015. The mine was previously owned and operated by MZI Resources and was purchased by Dorrell Mineral Sands in 2019, an experienced mineral sands company with over 20 years of mining experience in Southwest WA. The Keysbrook site comprises a wet concentration plant and administration offices which are permanently located in the Shire of Murray, whilst the majority of the mining operation is located within the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. The Keysbrook mining operations are currently located on Lot 57, which is owned by Dorrell and situated in the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. The current schedule forecasts mining to cease on Lot 57 by the end of January 2024. The company is seeking to extend its operations based on a 2-stage approvals approach, which is critical to the future of the Keysbrook mine. If approved, the Keysbrook mine life will be extended by a further 3 to 4 years and maintain the employment of 75 local employees, in addition to contractors, suppliers, and other associated economic benefits. To facilitate the continuation of the company's mining operations, Doral has submitted a Section 45C to the EPA in May this year for Lot 63 on Hopelands Road, located within the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. This land is owned by Doral, with sections previously mined by NZI Resources in 2015. If approved, Stage 1 will extend the Keysbrook mining operations for a further 12 months. Stage 2 of the extension approvals will be a larger mining footprint and will include the remaining ore from lots north of Elliott Road, being Lot 507, 508, 201 and down to Lot 20 Hopelands Road, which also includes 64, 63 and 62. Subject to the completion of the environmental studies, we anticipate submitting the EPA documentation later this year and estimate an approval timeframe of 18 to 24 months. If approved, Stage 2 will extend the Keysbrook mine for a further 2 to 2.5 years. Apart from Lot 62 and Lot 20, all mining extensions remain within the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. Any further development to the existing approved area of Stage 1 is subject to the timing of EPA approval. In the interim, the company has approached the Shire to revise the current development application and extractive industries licence. Stage 2 will be a longer time frame, and we will continue to keep the Shire informed of our progress in this regard. Doral is committed to operating to the most stringent environmental standards, with noise, dust and water remaining the highest of priorities. Significant resources are in place to ensure compliance, which includes daytime mining only, with only the mineral processing plant and loading outside of those hours, dust suppression in high-risk months, noise mitigation on key items of equipment, and a 24/7 contact number provided to closest neighbours. In terms of consultation, the company has communicated with all neighbours within a 2-kilometre radius, both Stage 1 and Stage 2, advising those residents of Doral's extension plans, and to date, we have not received any feedback citing concerns with the proposal. We are also required through the company's ministerial conditions to seek amenity agreements with neighbours within a 2-kilometre radius to offset potential social impacts from time to time for the duration of mining and rehabilitation. We would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the planning team at the Shire, who have been very cooperative and supportive in working through the company's various approval requirements, which at times has changed based on landowner access. Subject to all approvals in place, Keysbrook will remain in the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale locality for a further 3 to 4 years, in addition to the extensive rehabilitation program to follow. Approximately 60% of all land mined has now been rehabilitated to productive pasture, in addition to 139 hectares of native vegetation, amounting to approximately 500,000 seedlings locally sourced and planted across the operations. Doral continues to fund worthy organisations through the Keysbrook Community Consultative Group, of which Councillor Dave Atwell is a member. Key projects have included the Serpentine Food and Farm Fest, Byford Carols, the Keysbrook Volunteer Fire Brigade, Landcare SJ, Keysbrook Community Group, Mundajon Library, Serpentine Historical Society and Serpentine Jarrahdale Menship. At Doral, we recognise the responsibility of operating in a small community. We remain committed to ensuring we are a good neighbour, the communities benefit from our presence, we actively reduce our impact on the environment, and our stakeholders are informed and engaged on important developments. If any councillors or executive staff would like to tour our operations, we would be only too happy to facilitate this, noting that spring is the best time of year to view the rehabilitation progress. I'd like to thank you all for your time this evening and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I please ask Mr. Clayton Plug from Harley Dykstra regarding item 10.1.1, proposed place of worship, including incidental reception centre and community facility, lot 128 South Western Highway, Byford, to come forward. and present your deputation, please.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to present before you tonight. I'd like to go on record noting that our client's very happy with the recommendation for approval for you, but I've just asked that I address you in relation to one of the conditions on that approval, on that recommendation, I should say. Specifically, we're seeking a slight change to proposed condition B, which relates to the operating hours of the facility. We're seeking a change from the proposed restriction of Monday to Sunday. Currently, the restriction suggests between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. We wish to increase those hours just slightly to accommodate only incidental meetings and cleaning activities that may run past 10 p.m. on some occasions. We had applied for operating hours between 7 a.m. and 12 p.m. each evening, or 12 midnight. But through the recommendation before you tonight, you'll see that that's been limited to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Accordingly, we've provided suggested wording within this deputation request that I hope you've had the chance to review. But essentially, I'll read that out to you as follows. We're requesting an amendment to condition B to read as follows: that the operating hours of the development are limited to Monday to Sunday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m, except for incidental staff meetings and any duties associated with the cleaning, maintenance, or facility management. This incidental use will have a maximum capacity of 30 persons at any time post 10 p.m. and will be restricted to the operating hours of Sunday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. or midnight. In respect of that amendment, I'd just like to note a couple of things. Firstly, the additional hours are very limited in nature, given they'll only be available for staff meetings, required cleaning and maintenance services, and are limited to no more than 30 persons, just to clarify that. And in respect of acoustic concerns, the venue is located well away from residences, given it's separated by South Western Highway and Howitzer Turn, which runs parallel to the highway, such that residences are at least 60 metres from the proposed building. And furthermore, the main entrance to the building, as well as the vehicle access, the car parking as well, all located on the western side of the building, further enhancing separation from nearby residences. So we do trust that the reasons for this request are clear. I hope the Shire can see their way forward to accepting the proposed amendment or something similar, as the staff or councillors may suggest, that achieves the same effect for our client. Once again, I'd like to thank the Shire staff, particularly for their work on this and their positive recommendation, and for the work they've undertaken with us on this matter today. Happy to take any questions, but thank you very much for your time otherwise.
Thank you very much for presenting your deputation this evening. Could I please ask Mrs. and Mr. Leanne and Stephen Schneider regarding item 10.1.2 development application for outbuilding lot 601 142 Bronze Drive, Darling Downs, to come forward and present your deputation, please.
Let you know before I start that this is no electronic version of this information, but it will be provided to the council via email.
Thank you.
The information given here this evening is a brief synopsis of the Shire process as we were made to comply to during our shed applications. By hearing all this information, you should be able to see an unfair pattern happening. 21 months, 2 applications for 1 shed. We became Shire ratepayers in the Clare Morris estate 12th of January 2010. On February the 22nd, 2010, your Shire Development Compliance Officer, Jeanette O'Keefe, presented onto our property without invitation whilst we were unpacking our sea containers. She wanted to discuss the sea containers and large vehicle on our property. In relation to the vehicle, the following information was provided by her in writing and mailed to us. Letter dated the 22nd of February 2010. Large vehicle. SJ Shire Residential Zone 5.5.4, parking of commercial vehicles states. Provisions made for the vehicle to be housed in the garage or parked behind the building line. In the council's opinion, the parking of the vehicle will not prejudicially affect the amenity of the neighbourhood due to the emission of light, noise, vibration, smell, fumes, smoke or dust. Multiple references to our RV continues within meetings with Shire staff and documentation relating to our shed applications. Further to the discussion that was held regarding the said large vehicle, we talked about a proposed shed development on our property and a possible business. Letter information. Large vehicle, parking commercial vehicle not permitted, but Shire staff member is inspected inside a van showed being developed as RV and was not a commercial vehicle as defined in TPS 2 section 5.54 to 5.56. No Shire approval required going forward. Home business. Tattoo business. Recommendation from officer was to apply for a home business as this would cover yourself and provide ability to continue working with your plans and or circumstances change in the future. Proposed shed. Advised us we would need a development application submitted taking into account environmental and zoning restrictions as your property comes under LPB TPS 2. Fast forward, shed application number 1, 4th of March 2010. Shed quote number 1, 12 by 23 by 5, submitted by Rambuild on our behalf to Shire. Location site on our property is the same as the neighbour's current application. We went to the Shire, spoke with the front counter staff, Maureen, who advised this won't happen as it's oversized. 18th of March, home business application submitted and approved 28th of April 2010. 3rd of June 2010, shed quote number 2, 12 by 17 by 5, submitted by Rambuild again on our behalf to the Shire. Location site on our property is the same as the neighbour's current application. Phoned the Shire, spoke with Maureen and Nikki, who advised shed still oversized and will need engineered plans, planning permission, need to go to the council meeting. We asked for a meeting with planning to understand the processes and requirements and to obtain assistance to move forward. Nil was arranged by the Shire staff. 28th of June 2010, council minutes approved the home business. This is still being discussed in a file note dated 18th of March 2011 in relation to our shed application. Why is our registered council approved business still being held against us 9 months later? 4th of October 2010, shed quote number 3, 12 by 12 by 3.5, revised plans submitted in person to the Shire. Location, site and the property is same as neighbour's current application. Fast forward November 5th, 2010, quote number 3, 1 month later, shed application submitted again on our behalf by Rambuild direct to the Shire. Location, site on our property same as the neighbour's current application, 12 by 12 by 3.5. 10th of November 2010, Shire letter received for the for application number PO6129/07, seeking approval for variation as a proposed shed is located outside of the nominated building envelope. As application does not conform, council could invite public comment before making a final decision. High likelihood will need to be presented to a full council meeting for a decision. Whether this matter will need to be presented to council will depend on nature of any submission received during comment period and the matters identified during the full technical assessment of the application. Fees were paid on the 17th of December 2010 to have the application go to a full council meeting on the 28th of February 2011. There's no proof, and I believe there was no technical assessment done by council staff on our property, as our FOI failed to produce any documents in relation to this. Meanwhile, our neighbours have had a full technical assessment completed by SJ Shire staff for their current application. 30th of November 2010, a complaint received by the Shire from someone regarding our initial application. A copy was provided under FOI. Combined an existing shed over this allowed area, sea containers ongoing and increasing in the Claremorris estate. Businesses operating in the Claremorris estate, commercial vehicles inclusive of cold storage truck coming going day, night, weekends. 15th of December, I phoned Gillian Leopold at the Shire about new submitted amended shed size plans. She advised a complaint was received about the truck. Still, we received nothing in writing from the Shire about any complaints. He advised me letters were sent out to those who council see fit and who would be visually impacted regarding bigger shed plans. She advised an objection was received and applications can't be approved and must go to a council meeting. So 15th of December 2010, Steve presented to the Shire, had a lengthy discussion with Casey Rose from planning, discussed rules, regulations and objections to our planning application. Next day, 16th of December, Casey Rose phoned Steve on his mobile, more discussions had. The next day, 17th of December, we paid the $550 fees to go to the Shire for our application to go to a full council meeting 28th of February 2011. Whilst there, we had another discussion with Casey Rose from planning, who requested we now submit another new revised larger shed size plan. He said this would assist us, the Shire, in the approval process of our shed application as we could hide our already approved RV. 20th of December 2010, quote number 4 for a bigger shed, 12 by 19 by 4, was obtained from Rambuild and submitted to the Shire. Location, site on our property is the same as the neighbour's current location. Application. 17th of January 2011, letter received from Serpentine Shire requesting further details for vehicle to be parked inside the shed. It's approved. 22nd of February 2010, however, still holding up our application. 19th of January 2011, I phoned the Shire requesting a meeting to discuss the shed application. I was advised the application is going to a full council meeting, 28th of February 2011. 16th of February, Jodie from the Shire phoned me and advised our planning application is not on the February agenda and will not be going to the council meeting. She advised a letter was sent. More information was required about the truck. 17th of February 2011, phoned the Shire, wanted to request a meeting with the senior planning officer. I spoke with Casey Rose, who advised a letter was sent from the Shire to us requesting more information on our truck. She advised the vehicle in writing is part of the shed assessment and cannot go forward without this information. She then said officers can make decisions on the spot. The RV is being held against us again. Our frustrations were raised regarding nil communication sent to us in writing from the Shire regarding this whole process of being declined each and every time we submit new documents and revised plans at a cost each time to us that you request. The goalpost kept changing on every interaction we had with Shire staff members. 25th of February 2011, truck information was supplied in writing and photos of our vehicle were provided. It was already approved. 28th of February 2011, a lengthy meeting was held on site with Casey Rose and Lawrence Mann here at the Shire offices. Casey advised in the meeting that they had trouble justifying the truck, then asked us to submit an application for a bigger shed. Build a larger shed to hide the truck. The truck was approved again, 22nd of February 2010, 1 year and 6 days ago from this conversation. Lawrence Mann said letters will be sent again to who we deem to be affected to appease and clarify issues with neighbours. Was any letters ever sent to the complainants? The FOI showed not. Casey advised that the Shire system is not 100%. Policies and procedures is all a learning curve. More lengthy discussion regarding our truck. It's already approved and should not be used against us in our shed applications. We discussed the possibility of a small shed, but we did not agree to this in this meeting. We went to the front counter, paid the FOI application fee to obtain copies of all planning documents and application information relating to our shed. By this time, documents had all been submitted on our behalf by the shed company. Planning application dated 5th of November 2010 was released to us. No correspondence between the builder or shed company has ever been released to us that we've applied for under the FOI Act. 3rd of March 2011, letter from Lawrence Mann planning from the meeting. Shire letter states, path forward, and provided us 3 options. Revise your plans again and re-advertise with commercial vehicle. This is our RV. It's approved. Why do we need to put it in there? Re-advertise current plan and exclude the vehicle. Re-advertise an amended plan, remove the current smaller shed and have one shed predominantly within the building envelope. Part 2 of this document states, outbidding location. As discussed, during the location of the shed would be relocated to minimise any projections beyond the building envelope. 11th of March, vote number 5. 9 by 12 by 4, new plan submitted again to the Shire. By this stage, we're still trying to guess the magical shed size number that the Shire requires from us. 18th of March 2011, Casey Rose phoned my mobile. She advised she's got the plans in front of me and confirmed the new shed is smaller. After asking us in a meeting to submit bigger plans to hide the truck and keep the existing smaller shed as partially outside the building envelope. 18th of March, an internal file note was obtained from Serpentine Shire staff. Obtained under FOI from Casey Rose to Lawrence Mann, Mark Angeloni, Jeanette O'Keefe and Gillian Leopold. First paragraph states, subsequent to recent meeting between applicant and Shire staff, please find attached revised plan for lot 602 Bruns Drive. Tattoo artist with custom-made RV that looks like a truck. Goes back to my point in the questions. The only change now would be if neighbours stand with their objection to the most recent proposal. However, originally the basis of the objection also related to the commercial vehicle parking, which is now not related to the shed. I trust everyone agrees with this final outcome. There seems to be no further information or any replies released to us under FOI regarding this document and conversation. What does my profession have to do with my shed application? I do have a name, and I feel this is the defamation of character and discrimination from Shire staff members against me. Was my profession used as part of the reason we were denied our shed applications on multiple interactions? Why are we constantly harassed about our Shire approved RV, a vehicle that was approved February 2010. This is now 13 months later and still ongoing. Why did you not reply to the alleged complainants and advise them that the vehicle was approved? This was your job. 10th of May 2011, we received a copy of the building licence issued to our builder from the Shire, which included the approved incorrect site plan up the back, position that we originally wanted it and were declined. I applied under FOI for a copy of this document and the Shire cannot to date provide me with a copy of this licence and site plan. It seems strange that I have a copy of the Shire does not, even though it's on Shire letterhead. 13th of May 2011, we went again to Bramble to obtain a copy of planning approval for 12 by 12 by 3. Bramble staff contacted the Shire on our behalf. This is again why we have living information available to us under FOI, not accepted to obtain documents between our builder, shed company and Shire. Heather from Randall phoned Casey at the Shire at 11:20 in our presence, discussed planning approval for wrong shed size and placement and the 6 metres from the fence. The Shire staff advised new plans need to be submitted to the Shire. 20th of May 2011, Asher from Randall phoned my mobile and advised we'd received the wrong building licence. 27th of June, Shire meeting minutes online showed our shed was approved. Fast forward the 1st of November 2011. We went to the Shire offices, discussions again with Casey Rose and Tony from Ranger Services, who provided copies of planning to building licence processes. He advised us the new policy was up for adoption building 4 metres from the fence. He advised us we would need to submit a new planning application from the start. Can you advise if he has the delegated authority to instruct us to start this all over again? 2nd of November 2011, quote number 6. As directed by Casey Rose and Tony from the Shire, we again went to Randall to obtain size. We took these to the Shire to submit in person with Maureen at the front counter. Submitted the second application, was given a new application number and second lot of fees were paid. 9th of November, SJ Shire initial assessments and file note development application letter was received, which states variation supported as within the discretion range and considered significant. The Shire consistently approved sheds double the size of the proposed in this locality. Why were we never considered the initial larger shed then? 17th of November 2011, we received a thank you letter from lodging our second application from the Shire. It's understood that you're seeking approval for variation. The proposed shed is oversized and located outside the building envelope. Options: revise your plans again, letters again to be sent to the neighbours, justification again required, pay the fee and go to council. Here we go again. We've been made to apply for a shed again when it should have been a variation to our initial planning application. In conclusion, we were denied by the Serpentine Jarrahdale Shire on 5 submissions to build our shed in a similar location on our property that you are now considering approving for our neighbours. We submitted our initial shed application to be built on our property to comply with the open space calculations under the R2 density requirement of the R codes, ensuring that our site did not appear as overdeveloped and was to be consistent with the rural residential character of our locality. We also wanted to use our space on our property in the same manner that our neighbours are applying to do. We would have loved to have had a shed up the back in the same position to utilise our land to provide an open space feeling. However, we were denied on all applications and we were forced to build a shed that impacts on our own living space, as it had to be predominantly built within our building envelope, according to your guidelines and staff directions. Our neighbours are telling you in their submission that our shed does impact on our property in its current location, and yes, it does. After multiple interactions verbally and with very minimal documents in writing from the Shire staff and over a 2-year period, we felt discriminated against in relation to my profession, which is documented by your staff in our applications process. We also felt intimidated and bullied and were not assisted at all by the SJ Shire staff members during our application process. They advised us in writing that the only path forward was to comply with one of the 3 options provided: revise your plans, reduce your shed size and be predominantly within the building envelope; revise your advertised current proposal, verbally advised that this would not be approved if it went to a Shire Council meeting again; re-advertise, seek 1 shed, remove the small shed and still be predominantly within the building envelope. In the SJ Shire report for the neighbours submission, you are claiming that building envelopes are used to maintain a pattern of development establishing the character of the locality. If this is correct, then the orientation of the application, PA 2394, should be taken into consideration in relation to the objection received by the Shire. The majority of outbuildings within the state run east-west and not north-south, as per your aerial photos provided in the agenda.
You have 1 minute left, please.
Yep. Officers advise that the location of the outbuilding outside the building envelope is consistent with the existing pattern of development within the locality. I challenge this. Why were we not given the same opportunity to build like everyone else in the estate? Planning assessment PA 2394 states, your report states, a full technical assessment was carried out against current planning framework. Under the FOI process, we found that no full technical assessment was carried out for our application process, and we had paid the fees to go to a full council meeting for our shed to be processed. It also states the compatibility of the development with its setting, including the relationship of the developer to development on adjoining land and on other land in the locality, including but not limited to the likely effect of the height, bulk, scale, orientation, and appearance of the development. This process was not applied to our applications. We believe this is discrimination from the Shire towards us in relation to our placement on our property, multiple applications. If you've denied our application for this same placement on multiple submissions, then how can you approve the neighbour's application requesting the same placement on their first submission? If you're going to approve the neighbour's application for shed in the same placement that we applied for and denied, then you are going to take responsibility. Are you going to take responsibility and admit that your procedures and processes were not carried out correctly in relation to our multiple applications for the same position?
15-minute time frame is up. Thank you.
On our property that we originally applied for. if you approve the neighbour's submission being currently outside the building envelope on their property. You have replied to our questions raised at the council meeting 15th of May this year. Question 1, you advise us that a building can be constructed outside the building envelope within the Clare Morris estate. This ruling was not applied.
Yes, sir, Mr. Strider.
Considered to our list.
Strider, the 15 minutes.
Two more things to say. Question 2, you advised each application is assessed on individual planning merits. Our application was processed without merit and you quoted no buildings outside the building envelope. Question 3, you copied and pasted the same answer stating the scheme allows for building outside the envelope. Why are we not processing the same scheme? We believe that the decisions that were made in the past by the SJ Shire staff should stand today according to the government guidelines and laws, unless these have changed. I believe they have not. If the SJ Shire approves the neighbour submission for a shed entirely outside the building envelope and denied us the same opportunity, this is discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation.
Madam President, can I ask a question of Mr. and Mrs. Gilchrist? Can I ask a question of them? So these guys, aren't you? Sorry. Can I ask a question of them, please, Madam President?
Councillor Coles, they have not made a deputation this evening, so no, you can't ask a question. Oh, sorry, they're actually up next.
No, these people here, sorry, I apologise. Mr. and Mrs. Schneider, sorry.
So who would you like to ask a question of, Councillor Coles?
Mr. and Mrs. Schneider.
Councillor Coles?
Thank you. Do you have a figure of how much money this has cost you with, in your terms, the incompetence of the Shire? Well, how much money have you wasted in this whole process? How much money has this cost you? Thank you.
Thank you for your deputation, Mr. and Mrs. Schneider. Can I please ask Mr. and Mrs. Sandy and Graham Gilchrist regarding item 10.1.2 development application for outbuilding lot 601142 Bruns Drive, Darling Downs, to please come forward and present your deputation. Thank you. Your questions will be responded to in writing and a response will be sent to you from the CEO.
Evening, everyone. This submission of 10.1.1 development application outbuilding lot 601-142 Bruns Drive, Darling Down, PA 2394, and hereof 10.1.2 in this evening's agenda. After years of saving, we finally able to provide my husband with a large shed in which to finally have the height to store his car. We hired Spinifex Sheds to complete this job and filed all the appropriate paperwork with the council. We as applicants were aware of one neighbour's objection by Spinifex Sheds regarding the distance from the fence and building envelope. So we were happy to change the distance as per council regulations and then have the council's planning department attend our property to audit and review the area to ensure that an unbiased report could be prepared and submitted to council for review at the council meeting on April the 17th. Unfortunately, Spinifex Sheds was unable to attend that meeting, therefore myself and Graham attended in their place. The meeting really blindsided us in terms of our application because we had no idea how emotionally taxing the question period and deputation would be. During the initial submission process, we were not made aware of the major point of contention, which was the objector's former application to council for a shed from 10 years ago when we were not residing at that property, which was denied. Due to the fact, due to the fact that we were unable to voice out any objections or observations during the unexpected discussions, we were quite disappointed with the meeting procedure. We felt our characters were being questioned, which was unpleasant and frustrating. In regard to the application, we, the applicants, have always complied with all requests without reservation or deviation. One of the concerns mentioned by the objector's deputation that we would like to address was the impact of the shed on the Clare Morris estate community in terms of causing conflict between residents. We have lived in our property for a little over 9 years and love the neighbourhood. We adore the people, have many parties and have lifelong friend relationships. We believe in having open debates over a drink or conversation. Thus, we have never had the need to complain about what people do in their own property. However, we have been the target of complaints from the objectors in relation to everything we do on our property to improve the quality and appearance of our home. This includes installing a water tank, paving the path with asphalt, diverting the flow of the rain, maintaining fire breaks, council-approved burning and mowing the lawn. The subtle repositioning of vehicles or washing in the middle of our outdoor tasks is draining. A call from council with a complaint the next day almost became routine. As a resilient person, it pains me to say this, but this has caused me tremendous anxiety, making it difficult for me to want to go outdoors and do jobs, even though I would like to, because I'm afraid of this response. Given this, it is true that there hasn't been many conversations with objectors in a long time, but there haven't been any verbal conflicts either, merely polite interactions. We asked several of our neighbours if they had any problems with us having a shed facing north-south. Please let us know in writing, since we were so concerned that this submission was going to cause stress in our area, as it's the last thing we wanted. The vast majority of responses expressed disappointment that the plans had been disallowed in the first place, and many volunteered to come here tonight or write to council on our behalf, but we thought it was inappropriate. We really regret that the objectors have had to endure years of stress as a result of the previous application being denied. Sincerely, if we had been living there at the time, we would have encouraged it with no objection. We also regret that the objector now has to walk outside and see a shed in the spot where they envisioned their shed. But the irony is that by objecting, they unintentionally put us, the applicants, in the same psychological predicament. We simply wanted a shed and wanted to be able to continue living our lives without fear of being punished for what we do on our property. Finally, we agree with council should guarantee that no landowner is discriminated against and that all town planning laws and principles are followed. We would add, however, that if we did not move forward and remain open to change by considering ongoing applications based on merit and circumstances, we risk becoming stuck in the past. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your deputation this evening.
Madam President, can I ask a question? I'll get it right this time, of Mr. and Mrs. Gilchrist.
Yes, councillor Coles.
Did the Shire or anyone offer mediation between you and the neighbours?
We didn't feel there was need for mediation. That's why we went through.
Okay, but was it offered?
No. Oh yes, sorry.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you.
Could I please ask Mr. Paul McQueen from Levin regarding item 10.1.6, section 31, reconsideration of decision, amendment to conditions of approval, transport depot and light industry workshop, lot 41, 17 Cardup Road, Cardup, please.
Yes, good evening, Madam President. Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Somewhat uncharacteristically of the hour, I'm not going to spend too much time this evening. I've got some documents for you. I'll refer you to the letter from my instructors dated the 16th of June, which sets out the basis of the application. The task tonight for me is made simple by reference to the fact that the responsible officers report to council recommend approval, and I respectfully embrace the content of that report. I'm also instructed to say that the proposed conditions are accepted. Joined this evening by the chairman, Darren Cooper, who said right, and both Mr. Cooper and myself are here primarily to thank the officers for the good work they did, the Shire for the objective approach which has been adopted through this process, the facilitation of the experts which have been important and will be approved on the conditions. Recommendation. You'll see paragraph 7 of the letter from Lavin, if you have it before you. The adopted application is actually in respect of existing operation. There are 3 components that sought to be dealt with, set out in paragraph 7, 1, 2, and 3. You'll see that the proposal to meet condition 1 is based on the fact that the stormwater different plan has in fact now been approved. With respect to the amendment to condition 8, that's supported by all the technical work. That's right. Relation to condition 11 sought to be removed because additional work has in fact been carried out in review by council's own expert. The net result of this development application approved is actually a benefit to the community because of the changes in the nature of the operation. Contemplated. All of that is contained for you. Likely point out in the letter, which is that given the very thorough approach to assessment of the information which has taken place, I'm confident correct, preferable planning and leaders to approve this as recommended. No reasons which very respectfully justify the approach. Subject to thanking you and your staff for the work that's been done and the opportunity to present and to answer any questions that might be posed. The recommendation to support for.
Thank you very much for your deputation this evening.
Thank you.
You may leave.
Thank you very
Fine.
much, Your Honour.
Yeah. Could I please ask Mr. Jordan Williams of LWP Property Group regarding item 10.1.10, the Glades Byford Local Structure Plan Amendment number 11, Cardup Brook Precinct, to come forward and present your deputation this evening, please.
Ms. Shire President and councillors, my name is Jordan Williams. I'm a Senior Development Manager at LWP Property Group. This deputation is provided in respect of the Glades Estate in Byford as applicant of the proposed amendment to the Glades Estate LSP Brook Precinct. This deputation is provided in support of the officer's recommendation and addresses key matters to inform council's decision on the proposed amendment. The Glades Estate in Byford more broadly continues to be sought after its amenity, lifestyle and relative affordability. With works progressing on the Byford Metronet station and the Tonkin Highway extension, the demand for land in Byford is only anticipated to continue. With the development of the Glades north of Orton Road likely to be fully constructed within the next 18 months, a key focus over the last 3 years has been getting the land south of Orton Road ready for development. The key reasons for pursuing this amendment can be summarised as follows. Rationalisation of the subdivision layout. This has led to an overall increase in the average lot size and a reduction in total yield from the current approved LSP. Introduction of residential design code ranges to allow for flexibility at the subdivision detailed design phase. This is of particular importance considering the changes to the residential medium density design codes that the development industry is still working their way through. Consolidation of active and unrestricted open space into a 4 hectare district open space, and consolidation of mixed use land and the introduction of a service commercial sub precinct adjacent to the future Tonkin Highway extension. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank and commend the Shire's officers for their collaborative manner and genuine effort to work towards a mutually beneficial outcome. We have worked closely to resolve various matters raised through the government agency referral and public submission phases to advance this proposal. In particular, the support from the officers for the inclusion of the service commercial sub-precinct and the proposed roundabout at Orton Road and Tourmaline Boulevard is greatly appreciated. Conscious of time, so I'll try and keep these following matters brief. Regarding the roundabout at Orton Road and Tourmaline Boulevard, As noted in the officer's report, main roads raised concerns regarding the connections of Tonkin Highway and Norton Road, specifically the intersection of Tourmaline Boulevard and Norton Road, mainly raising concerns about safety. To demonstrate satisfactory traffic operations, a subsequent traffic report was prepared, and that's confirmed that the proposed roundabout is in fact safe and a more efficient network is provided. The report also demonstrates that if no roundabout was to be provided, the resulting redistribution of traffic onto surrounding roads, including Kokoda Boulevard, would severely impact the free flow of traffic and raise additional safety concerns. So we support the officer's report and suggested modification to modify the intersection to a four-way roundabout, and we'll continue to work with the Shire and main roads through the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage assessment. The extension of Dolly Road. This LSP amendment supports the extension of existing Dolly Road south of Horton towards the Cardup Brook. The officer's report states that the amendment proposes the extension of Dolly Road through the amendment area, connecting Horton Road to Cardup Siding Road. Whilst this road connection is supported by LWP, the need for the crossing of the Cardup Brook has been generated by the proposed development south of the Cardup Brook. I'd like to clarify that our LSP only relates to LWP's land holding north of the Cardup Brook, and that LWP are not responsible for any works relating to the crossing of the Cardup Brook. As outlined further in the agenda this evening, LWP are assisting with the land tenure changes, which will facilitate the extension of Dolly Road to Cardup Siding Road on its ultimate alignment. The district open space, and drainage. LWP has been working with the Shire for several years to incorporate a district open space facility south of Horton Road. The work involved in the accommodation of this district open space involved a comprehensive review of the POS provision in our Cardup Brook precinct, which resulted in most of the previously planned active and unrestricted areas of POS being consolidated into this central facility. As a result, the POS areas remaining are primarily located along the brook to accommodate the precinct's drainage requirements. Notwithstanding support from Dwyer and the Shire in 2016 for the location of drainage within the brook buffer, lengthy negotiations have occurred with the Shire's technical officers and Dwyer. This has resulted in a revised drainage design that proposes no 1 year drainage infrastructure within the brook buffer, and only a portion of the 1 in 5 year flood storage component being contained within the buffer. It ensures storage depths that are in keeping with industry standard. The lodged and current UWMP simply presents an update to the previously supported UWMP that is consistent with this proposal. The only infrastructure occurring within the buffer will be a landscaped fund and one small outflow pipe, both of which are unlikely to have any impact on the condition of the Cardup Brook and its surroundings. We believe there is ample opportunity for LWP and the Shire's officers to collectively work through any points of concern at the subdivision and engineering design stages. In response to Dwyer's concerns about availability of groundwater, I can advise that we are currently reviewing groundwater allocations within the Glades estate as part of a partial licence transfer to the Shire. This review is ongoing, and it also covers the irrigation requirements for the Cardup Brook precinct and the district open space. The service commercial sub-precinct, so we're seeking amendment to rationalise the existing mixed-use and neighbourhood node sites dispersed along Horton Road into a service commercial sub-precinct of approximately 6.5 hectares at the western end of Horton Road. It is envisaged this will accommodate large format retail development capable of supporting large format showroom and bulky goods that fall outside the traditional convenience-based retail planned within the Byford Town Centre. As acknowledged by the officer's report and demonstrated through retail's needs assessment in support of the LSP amendment, strong demand for the large format retail activity in the northwest and southeast regions has been established. The service commercial sub-precinct within the Glades is considered a logical commercial and planning opportunity for the timely and sustainable provision of large format retail activity to serve the Byford and Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale residents. These types of activities will contribute to the Shire's employment self-sufficiency targets and provide greater opportunity for local residents to have local jobs. To conclude, the Cardup Brook precinct represents the final precinct of the Glades estate, and with the completion of stages north of Horton Road in 2024, it is crucial that the LSP amendment be finalised at the earliest opportunity to enable the continuation of development in a logical and timely manner. To this end, the officer's report recommendation to endorse is supported, and we welcome Council's favourable consideration of the proposed amendment this evening. LWP looks forward to continuing our good working relationship with the Shire during the development of Carnival Precinct. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you for your deputation this evening. Could I please ask Mr. Peter Dockett from Richard Noble regarding item 10.1.11, consideration of proposed structure plan, lot 33, Hopkinson Road, Cardup, to come forward and present your deputation, please?
Good evening, Madam President, councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Just a clarification, my name is actually Steve Carter, Principal at CLE Town Planning. With me is Peter Dockett, Richard Noble, as well as Jeffrey Lush of Lush Environment Planning, the bushfire consultant. We want to begin by asking council to support the Lot 33 structure plan, notwithstanding it's been moved. I won't take much of your time tonight, as I know time is precious, and I do understand that Peter Dockett has circulated a comprehensive response to you all on Friday, so we won't reiterate all that verbatim. Other than we understand, we believe there's some confusion relating to the reasons being cited for refusal. And other than that, we just like to make ourselves available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. That concludes deputations for this evening's meeting. We'll move to item 5, which is the President's report. Good evening and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting for June 2023. The past month has been a busy one in Serpentine Jarrahdale, with several local projects hitting important milestones. Firstly, the Shire was thrilled to see the future of the Byford Health Hub secured following the WA Government's commitment of $36.3 million in the 2023-24 state budget. The Health Hub will provide an accessible and modern service to our Shire, meaning locals will no longer have to travel to receive specialist care. This is a fantastic announcement for our community, and we thank the State Government for their commitment to Serpentine Jarrahdale residents. Progress has also continued at the site of the Kiernan Park Recreation and Sporting Precinct, with the detailed design for Stage 1A and Stage 1B now close to completion. It was great to meet with Member for Darling Range, Hugh Jones, to discuss key projects for SJ last month. The meeting was also a chance to discuss election funding updates, the Shire's Hypergrowth Roads program, and the future Tonkin Highway extension. Another key project I am pleased to provide an update on is the development of the Byford Skate Park Stage 2 upgrades. It was fantastic to see our community, particularly our local young people, have their say on the concept plans for the upgrades over the past month. I was pleased to see a strong turnout of SJ youth attend our consultation workshop at the skate park, with more than 50 surveys being completed on the day. The public comment period for the upgrades closed last week, with Shire officers and skate park designers now reviewing the feedback we received. Stay tuned to the Shire's website and social media channels for further information on this project. Recent weeks have also seen upgrades to the Darling Downs Equestrian Park officially completed. These works included upgrading 14 kilometres of trails throughout the park, which is a huge boost to our local horse riders. The Shire thanks the Darling Down Residents Association for their hard work in helping to deliver this project. Moving on, it has been great to see our community engaging at our local events. It was wonderful to see such a positive turnout to the Shire's National Families Week celebration, recognising the important role young families play in shaping Serpentine Jarrahdale. No doubt young families will be out in droves again this weekend at the Muddy Buddies Adventure Day returns to Jarrahdale on Sunday. This event is a wonderful chance for kids to get outside and enjoy a day out in our Shire's natural scenery. Finally, I'd like to close tonight by reminding all SJ residents to prepare for more wild weather as we move further into the winter months. We've received plenty of rain and windy conditions over the start of June, and I encourage all of our locals to ensure their properties are protected in the event of a storm. Our SES unit does a wonderful job responding to calls across SJ during the storm season, but we can all do our part to make their jobs easier by preparing our properties. More information on the Serpentine Jarrahdale SES can be found on the Shire's website. As always, my full calendar can be viewed on the following pages. Item 6 is declaration of councillors and officers' interest. Councillor Lauren Strange has declared a financial interest in item 9.1, notice of motion, council approval to meet remaining costs for Councillor Strange to complete the Walga provided diploma of local government for elected members. The nature of the interest is financial. The extent of the interest is the value of the remaining course costs being $3,745. Councillor Strange will leave the meeting while this item is discussed. Councillor D'Agostino has declared a financial interest in item 9.1. The nature of the interest is gifting of a horse. The extent of the interest is an estimated value of $1,000. Councillor D'Agostino will leave the meeting while this item is discussed. Shire President Councillor Michelle Rich declared an impartiality interest in item 9.2, notice of motion, review of the Shire's debt collection policy. The nature of the interest is I have been named in the report by Councillor Mack. The extent of the interest is I have been named in the report by Councillor Mack. Councillor Robert Coles declared an impartiality interest in item 10.1.1, proposed place of worship, including incidental reception centre and community facility, lot 128, Southwestern Highway, Byford. The nature of the interest is I have a friendship with Pastor Joe Rossi. The extent of the interest is impartiality interest. Councillor David Atwell declared a financial interest in item 10.1.3, proposed road naming application, lot 14 Scott Road, Mundijong. The nature of the interest is financial. The extent of the interest is a part owner of property adjacent. Councillor Atwell will leave the meeting while this item is discussed. Councillor Robert Coles declared an impartiality interest in item 10.1.6, section 31, reconsideration of decision, amendment to conditions of approved transport depot and light industry workshop, lot 41, 17 Cardup Siding Road, Cardup. The nature of the interest is a friend is a director of a company involved in short-term water management plan. The extent of the interest is impartiality interest. Shire President Councillor Michelle Rich declared an impartiality interest in item 10.5.1, advocacy priorities 2025 state and federal government elections. The nature of the interest is I am a long-term supporter of the Keenan Park project. The extent of the interest is I am a long-term supporter of the Keenan Park project. Item 7 is confirmation of minutes of previous council meetings. 7.1 is the ordinary council meeting held on the 15th of May 2023. Can I please have a mover for this motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Byers. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Strange. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8 is receipt of minutes or reports and consideration of adoption of recommendations from committee meetings held since the previous council meeting. 8.1 is the Audit, Risk and Governance Committee meeting held on the 22nd of May 2027. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, councillor Coles. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, councillor Strange. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 9, motions of which notice has been given. 9.1 is notice of motion, council approval to meet remaining costs for councillor Strange to complete the Walga provided diploma of local government for elected members. Can I please have a mover for this motion?
Madam President, I wish to move my alternate motion as circulated.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Can I please have a seconder for the alternate motion as before us? Thank you, councillor Byers. Is there anybody?
Madam President, for the benefit of the gallery, can councillor Coles maybe just outline the difference of what the alternative motion is while the minute secretary gets on the screen, please?
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you. So it is that council notes the underspend in council training budget in the 22-23 financial year and approves the allocation of 3745 within the 22-23 annual budget to meet the remaining costs, and everything else is extant.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Is there anybody? Councillor Byers. We have an alternate motion moved by councillor Coles, seconded by councillor Byers. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Thank you, councillor Stratton. Councillor Coles, would you like to open debate, please?
Thank you, Madam President. It's fairly, I guess, interesting that I moved this motion with all the issues that have happened of late with councillors' training. But I would say that training is important, and I did think about this long and hard because it's not our money. As I always say, the Shire has no money, it's ratepayers' money. However, for someone to seek a scholarship to better themselves, to become a better councillor, I'm in favour of. So half of the allocation has already been paid for through a scholarship, and the councillor is purely asking for the other half to come out of council training. And I think that's a key point here. Whilst it is ratepayers' money, it has been allocated to councillors as part of their training budget. And the reason I've put this amendment forward is so it comes out of the budget that we currently have, not the new budget that we're looking at setting the rates later on in the next month or so. This is a budget that's currently been passed, and there is money, I think it's $27,000 roughly, unallocated that's against councillor training. So there is money there to pay for it. And I do note that the draft workshops we had for the budget, there has been a review of the amount of money put towards councillor training. So rest assured, ratepayers, we're not spending that amount of money in the net. Well, it hasn't been passed yet, so I should be cognizant of that. But certainly the indications are that council is happy not to put so much money into councillor training. That said, this is money that's already there, so it's been unallocated. It's not as if we have to take money from somewhere else. And quite simply, I commend the fact of any councillor progressing their own training, for councillors to go out and to do training, to councillors to go out and to complete their training, which has been proven. And for this matter here, it has been proven through confidential attachments to this that Councillor Strange has completed the required training to date. So I commend this motion.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Councillor Byers, would you like to speak or reserve?
I'll reserve, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stratton, would you like to speak against the motion?
Thank you, Madam President. Absolutely. What Councillor Strange has achieved through this scholarship is a positive reflection on the Shire, on herself, and something all our residents ought to be proud of. I don't want to go into great debate, but the only reason that I'm opposing this is because I wouldn't have asked the ratepayers to pay for my extra money for the training. I did hope that all the extra money that was preserved, that wasn't used for training, would be used for the ratepayers' benefit. But at the same time, of course, this training has the potential to be for the ratepayers' benefit. So, like I said, I don't really want to go into it any deeper than that, other than the fact that I think ratepayers would have got more benefit if they weren't having to fund the last part of this training. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Strawton. Is there any councillor who would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Coles, would you like to close, please?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Exactly, the comments that have already been made by both sides. It's not our money, it's ratepayers' money. However, it is a benefit to the community. And I guess my concern in relation to this was whether Councillor Strange remains a councillor post the October election. And that's something I had to get some clarification on, because a policy I thought was in 6 months, but it's in within 3 months of your time for election. So it is within 3 months. And certainly the policy, as the community would be aware, the policy is now in place so that if Councillor Strange doesn't complete the remainder of the diploma, then she'll repay the 3,745. So it's an investment. It's an investment not only in Councillor Strange's abilities as a councillor, but it's also to assist her in decision making that would ultimately benefit the community. And whether Councillor Strange decides to run again in October this year is a matter for herself. And if she doesn't get elected in October this year, she can always run again in 2025. So I do commend the motion.
Thank you, councillor Coles. All those in favour of the alternate motion before us? All those against? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried 6-1. Can we please have the councillors return?
And councillor Coles, can we get a reason for the difference from the officer recommendation for the minutes, please?
To use unallocated, it's probably to use allocated funds in the 22-23 financial year. Sorry, Madam Secretary, maybe it should be to use councillors' training unallocated funds in the 22-23 financial year. Yeah. I think, and I've got to get in cheap seats down to the screen. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, councillor Strange and councillor D'Agostino. The alternate motion put forward by councillor Coles, with the change being 1, notes the underspend in councillor training budget in the 2022-2023 financial year. In item 2, approves an allocation of $3,745 within the 2022-23 annual budget. That motion was carried 6-1. Item 9.2, notice of motion, review of the Shire's debt collection policy. Can I please have a mover for this motion?
Madam President, before I do move this, I just had a quick question. We did get some confidential attachments which were provided to us just prior to this meeting. If I can take some guidance from yourself or the CEO, would it be possible to potentially defer this item to PC effort to get some clarity from the information obtained in those documents?
Madam President, it's up to council. If they wanted to move a motion to defer it for a policy concept forum, it's up to the council to move a motion to that effect.
In that case, I'd like to put a motion forward to defer for a policy concept forum.
Thank you, councillor Mack.
Sorry, Madam President, can I ask a question? Maybe CEO or manager of governance.
Councillor Coles.
Thank you. I'm just trying to find my emails. And I don't want to misquote, but my understanding is that the confidential items we received at about 6:20. Can I have a reason why council has received confidential items some half an hour before a meeting?
Certainly, through the chair, as it says in the report, officers wanted to receive some legal advice about distributing the requested confidential information. That only came through late this afternoon, and then the documentation had to be prepared and marked confidential. So that's.
Can I ask what time that confidential or that advisement came through from the legal?
Oh, I have to ask the manager of governance.
And perhaps while that question's being pondered, if I can ask another question, when was the staff advised of this motion?
Just add to the other bit of the question. The request for the information was requested to be tabled at the meeting, so it wasn't necessarily requested to be distributed prior to the meeting. It was a request to lay the papers on the table at the meeting. So that's just clarify that point, I guess, in the answer to the first question.
The legal advice came through at 1:42 p.m. today.
Okay, thank you. So can I just get on record, the reason that the documents are available at 6:20 and it might have been 6:18, is that because staff wanted the documents to be tabled at the meeting or because there was a particular delay by staff?
Oh, I think it was I think it was interpretation of the legal advice, but the request was for the items to be laid on the table at the meeting.
And if I can ask, this whole process, the Shire staff have been adamant that this has been treated the same as any other ratepayer. Is that the case, or is there special consideration being given to this particular ratepayer?
I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services to respond to
that. Yeah, identical to any other ratepayer.
Thank you. So if this was a debt policy pertaining to another ratepayer, we would only get the information 20 minutes before the meeting.
Yes.
If
the request was to lay the items on the table at the meeting, yes.
Okay, thank you. And the final question, notwithstanding the conflict or the declaration that was made by the presiding member, I'm not sure whether the presiding members actually mentioned in the notice of motion 9.2, unless I'm mistaken.
Is that a question? I'm not sure.
Sorry, it was a question. It was a question.
Oh, well, I draw your attention to the last two sentences of the officer's advice, which says when submitting that, the outstanding rates to the Shire President through the tabling of papers at the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Martin, I have a number of questions myself in regards to this item. I'd like some answers to before we move to the motion that Councillor Mack has put forward. And my questions most likely probably be best answered by Councillor Mack, since that he's the author of the notice of motion that has been put forward. Is it against the law to have a debt? Councillor Mack.
No, I do not believe it is, Madam President.
Thank you. Given that the notice of motion that you have put forward requests that the Chief Executive Officer conducts a review of Council Policy 3.2.9 rates collection and general debtors, and presents the outcomes of the review initially to the policy concept forum prior to advertising for public comment. 2, notes that a draft with any proposed revisions to the policy following public consultation would be presented to Council by December 2023. And 3, resolves that Council Policy 2.1.1 trials be deferred until February to March 2024 timeframe within the policy review forward program to facilitate point 1.
Madam President, just a point of clarification. The Councillor Mack's motion is the councillor recommendation.
Sorry.
What you just read out was the alternative officer recommendation proposed.
Sorry, the councillor's recommendation is that council resolves that the chief executive officer conduct a full review of the Shire's debt collection policy and present it to council at the earliest reasonable time. That being the motion on notice that is put forward, I would like to hear from Councillor Mack of what the relevance in the last paragraph of the officer's report, which reads, when submitting the notice of motion under section 3.2 and 3.3 of the Shire Standing Orders, Local Law 2002 as amended, Councillor Mack requested that councillors be provided all papers relating to the debt recovery process for the outstanding rates of the Shire President through the tabling of papers at the meeting. Officers are obtaining legal advice regarding this matter. I would like to ask the question of what relevance that has to the councillor's recommendation that he has put forward.
Thank you for the question, Madam President. I guess the motion itself was put forward in light of a ratepayer who had an outstanding debt, who claimed that they were currently before the courts, but wasn't actually aware that they had the outstanding debt. Now, I just thought it is one thing to have a policy, and it's one thing to have it on paper. It is one thing to understand the real world implications of that policy. So this was a way for council to be able to get the real world aspects of what actually happens through this process to get a real understanding of how the policy works in the real world.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Councillor Mack, it is my understanding that you submitted this notice of motion to council officers on Monday, the 12th of June, 2023. Is that correct?
There had been preliminary discussions underway prior to that, but was confirmed in writing on Monday.
So you are confirming that the notice of motion was submitted to council office or Shire officers on Monday, the 12th of June, 2023?
I don't have the exact email here in front of me, but that would sound correct.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Councillor Mack, are you able to confirm that you received an email from myself on the 18th of May 2023 in regards to the rate arrears that I had at that time that had been raised?
Madam President, can I raise a point of order?
Councillor Coles, I'm asking a question in regards
and I'm
to
asking a point of order.
Councillor Coles?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wonder whether your questions are actually delivered at the right time. We've got a motion here. We've had someone who's moved the motion to be deferred, and now you're asking questions without someone having the opportunity to second the motion for it to be deferred. I understand that you have the right to ask questions of the mover, but I just wonder whether that's appropriate to do so at this point.
Councillor Coles, you have asked questions under the same system here this evening for this item. So is there a difference between you being able to ask questions and myself being able to ask questions?
There is a fundamental difference, Madam President, but you are the presiding member. So if you don't believe there's a point of order, I'll allow you to continue because it's your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Councillor Mack, are you able to confirm that you received an email from myself, being Councillor Michelle Rich, on the 18th of May 2023 which advised all councillors that the rate arrears issue that had been raised at the 15th of May OCM had been resolved and that all rates, including interest and fees, had been paid in full.
I was at the 19th of May, Madam President. No, sorry, you are correct, on the 18th of May. We did, yes.
So you confirm that you received that email?
Yes, we did.
Thank you. I'd also ask, given your response to a previous question that I've asked this evening, if you are wanting life experience of how the debt collection process works, and it has been pointed out by numerous members of the community that there is another 27 odd ratepayers that had a matter listed on the e-court portal for the Perth Magistrate Court, why myself has been the only debt that was outstanding as of the 15th of May 2023 has been put forward and asked for papers to be laid on the table, and not one of the other ratepayers in the same position has had the same request made of their information by yourself.
Thank you for the question, Madam President. And I guess the fundamental difference here is that it was yourself who provided information to council that you were unaware of the issue being before the courts. And I'm not aware of any of the other 27 applicants who are before the courts being unaware they are the process of court proceedings. So I thought it was a fundamental difference that this be one that we would highlight to see if there is something in our policy that is lacking to help our ratepayers to actually make sure they are aware of what's happening.
So I have been singled out by yourself through the action with this notice of motion. Am I correct in that understanding?
Absolutely not singled out. It was the fundamental fact that I believe that there was a ratepayer, whoever that ratepayer happened to be, was unaware that they were before the courts. And I thought it was a fundamental flaw, perhaps in our policy, that is worth reviewing to see if our policy is robust enough to actually do the right thing by our ratepayers.
Councillor Mack, it wasn't just a ratepayer. You have actually named me in the request that you put forward for the notice of motion. So it wasn't just a ratepayer. You have specifically named myself as a Shire President. So I ask again, have I been singled out for the information that you have requested to be laid on the table this evening in regards to a review of a policy which does not need the information to have that review take place?
No, I don't believe you have. And had it have been any ratepayer that said they were unaware they were before the courts, and if any other ratepayer wanted to bring that to my attention, I would be happy to look into that for them as a ratepayer as well, as of to where our policies have potentially let them down.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. We have a motion to defer before us from Councillor Mack. Can I please, Councillor Mack has provided that he would like to defer to take this item to a policy concept forum. Can I please have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this motion?
Madam President, can we just clarify what the motion is? You've mentioned a policy concept forum and it reads council meeting. So I just want to make sure that we've captured the actual motion, please.
Councillor Mack did state that he would like it deferred to be able to take it to a policy concept forum of council. Is that my understanding correct, Councillor Mack?
For the matter to be referred to a future council meeting following a presentation at a policy concept forum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody opposed to this motion? I'm actually opposed to it. Councillor Mack, open debate, please.
Thank you, Madam President. As I said, we were given some confidential attachments, which perhaps it may be through my inexperience here in the wording of my proposal to say I wanted the documents tabled. I sort of believe that to mean that they were to be tabled for council consideration when considering this motion, rather than actually being presented to the table. So I accept that's perhaps on me, and that deferring this motion so we can all consider all relevant documentation would be appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Councillor Duggan, would you like to speak or reserve?
Thanks, Madam President. I'd like to speak on this one, if I may. I'm sure that all councillors remember I also sent an email after the May Ordinary Council meeting where I too questioned the robustness of our debt collection policy based on what Madam President had said at that meeting, and also said again in the Examiner, or was quoted also in the Examiner newspaper, where she went on record saying that she wasn't aware about the outstanding debts until the May council meeting, and that concerned me that we may have had other residents in our shire who weren't given the opportunity to learn about their arrears unless they happened to be the shire president and happened to have been found. So I also asked the same question. So that is why I thought that this was a valid motion. And as with all other councillors, I haven't had a chance to look at the information here to be able to make a suitable decision on whether the other policy that would have to get put off, the trails and the dogs policy, whatever it was, if it's worth putting them off so that the CEO can do this review without having time to actually assess the papers. I think it's really important that these things are done in a timely manner with full information. So that's why I support the motion being deferred. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. I'll be very, very brief in my debate against this. I actually think that the motion we have before us that Councillor Mack has put forward is that Council resolves that the Chief Executive Officer conduct a full review of the Council's debt collection policy and present it to Council at the earliest reasonable time is very simple and does not need to be workshopped at a policy concept forum. And I believe that this item can be dealt with this evening at this meeting and does not need to come back to a following council meeting. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Coles?
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with the comments you just made, but it's like anything in life, there's a thing called evidence. And it's always good to review a policy when we have evidence available to us. And I'll be put on the record now, unequivocally, that this is a reason to have a look at our policy. It is information where we have been told a person, a ratepayer, it's not personal, it is a ratepayer that has told members of the public, ratepayers themselves, that they were not aware of debt recovery action, that they were not aware of court proceedings, that they were not aware of a means inquiry. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, any ratepayer who gets served to go to court on a means inquiry that fails to attend gets issued a warrant. I would not want anyone to get issued a warrant for something that they were not aware of. Quite simply, it would be a process that has not been followed. It would not be due process. It would not be fair to the ratepayer. Irrespective of who you think we're trying to single out, that is absolutely incredulous. And I would, if someone in this room believes that there is an attack upon the position of president, then I would ask that person to apologise, because this isn't singling out a particular person. This is singling out a ratepayer who has been put on record in print media, in an oral setting here in the council chambers that have been recorded, saying that they were not aware of proceedings in court. how many other of those 27 ratepayers has the Shire gone through with this policy process of them being served, allegedly served, because we have heard from a ratepayer that they were never served. We have heard from a ratepayer that that ratepayer was not aware of going to court. If that is the case, then that is a blight on our policy. That is a blight on everyone here at the table, because we are allowing ratepayers to potentially get issued warrants for their arrest without them being advised of a court date. If that has happened to anyone, whether it was me, whether it was a Shire president, whether it was Bill Smith who lives in Byford, it's irrelevant of the person. This is not an attack on a person. This is information that has come to light that we must, as council, we must, as Shire staff, act on. We can remonstrate about machinations at play here, and we can talk about elections, and we can talk about other things, but quite simply, we have a duty to our ratepayers to have a policy that is robust. We have a duty to our ratepayers that if they are told that they have an outstanding debt, whether it's for rates or for anything else, that they know about it, that they turn up to court when they know about it. If there is any ratepayer that has been sent to court by this organisation and they don't know about it, that is a blight on this organisation. How can we have a policy where someone is meant to go to court and they're not aware of it? That is the reason behind this motion. I commend this motion, and I commend that now that we have the information at the 11th hour, and if that was an oversight by Councillor Mack, I assumed that we were going to get it in time, so much so I asked the CEO this afternoon at about 3 o'clock, where is this information? Because I don't work in hypotheses. I don't work when I don't know the information in front of me. People can criticise me from my left, but I will not make a decision unless I have the required information in front of me. How can we review our policy? How can we ensure that our ratepayers that are meant to go to court have been advised to go to court by the Shire when we don't have the right information? This is a good motion, but we need time to go through it and pick it apart. I support the deferral.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Is there anybody else who would like to speak against the motion?
Yes, Madam President. I mean, I've just listened to a whole lot of talk. I don't talk a hell of a lot myself, but purely by the motion, it says that we are wanting to investigate a policy. Now, whether or not some information has come to light all of a sudden, I can't see makes one bloody iota of difference. I honestly can't. The motion is we investigate it, we get the CEO to have an investigation into it, and that is quite clear. You can talk as much as you like about whatever you like. It just clearly, to me, is exactly what it says.
Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there any other councillor who would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Mack, would you like to close, please?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm hearing what Councillor Atwell had just said in saying it is just a simple process, but we've also seen in the officer's recommendation to defer off some other policies that to a later date. So it is important that we actually know that this review is needed, and that is why I felt it imperative to defer to consider all our information before we would vote on the motion. So I'll put it to a vote to defer.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. All those in favour of the deferral? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion is carried 5-4. Minute Secretary, can we please have the votes recorded? Can I please ask the members of the public gallery to remain silent during the meeting, please? Item 9.3, notice of motion, Westport Landside and Logistics Study. Can I please have a mover for this motion?
Madam President, can I propose an alternate motion that we defer this motion?
If you wish, councillor.
Yes, please.
Do you have a reason for deferral or is it just a procedural motion?
Oh, combination of factors. I think we've got a lot of important matters to consider tonight. Obviously, this is relevant and important, but I think really in deference to the attendees, I think in terms of priority, I'd like to see us move on.
Councillor D'Agostino, I intend to pull this meeting up at 10 p.m, given that we have not got into the body of the meeting as yet. We have officers that have been here since early this morning and they need to be able to get home safely. We have a large agenda that we haven't even touched on yet. So my thought process was to deal with this item and then to
Well, I think given your stated position, I think
defer this meeting until a time in the future to come back and complete the meeting.
I think given your stated position, that really reinforces my proposal. And I think as much attention as we can give to the substance of the meeting, then that should be the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Can I have is it a procedural motion to defer or?
No, it's an alternate motion as stated.
Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Do I have a seconder for the motion to defer? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously.
Madam.
9:57.
So, Madam President, if I may, I've just looked to my left and there's some people here that are fairly interested in 10.1.11. Can we move understanding or bring that item forward? And then obviously I'm in your hands as to what action you take after that. But I think it's fair for these people who have been sitting here for 3 hours that they can have their be heard.
Councillor Coles, are you moving a motion to bring that item forward in the agenda?
I am. Yeah, I'll say yes at the moment, but I honestly think we should stay here and crack on. But it's obviously not my decision. But certainly for people that are here, perhaps in actual fact, Madam President, the best thing would be to have a 5-minute adjournment. We could find out who's here for what items, and then we deal with them, and then potentially revisit the items where no one, I was going to say where no one's interested, that's not the right term, where people aren't invested tonight, then we can redo that, because I'd hate for people to come here tonight and not have their items heard.
Councillor Coles, it is now clocking over 10 p.m. I am not willing to keep the officers here when they have worked a full day before this meeting, given that we have not got into the meeting agenda items proper at this point in time.
Thanks, Madam President. The only comment I would make, the most important people, the ratepayers, then staff, then councillors. So I think the ratepayers should be heard first, but I'm in your hands.
Excuse me, members of the public gallery, can you please remain silent? Thank you. Councillor Coles, do you think that's funny? Do you think a member of the public disrupting a council meeting is funny?
No, I don't think it's funny, Madam President, but it's too often that we as councillors don't listen to the community. They are here tonight for a
Councillor
reason.
Coles,
Thank
it's
you, Madam
10
President.
PM.
Okay, so what's more
Thank
important?
you.
People going to sleep or listening to our ratepayers?
The
So we are
safety,
here
the
for
safety of
ratepayers.
our officers. Thank you very much.
Madam President, I find that a bit bewildering that a policeman would speak like that, considering the fact that if someone goes to sleep on the way home, they could well be killed.
Members of the public gallery, can I please have a show of hands of the people that are here for item 10.1.11? Councillor Coles, would you like to move your motion to have this item moved forward?
Thank you, Madam President. I would ask under standing orders that item 10.1.11 is the next item of business. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Can I please have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1.11, consideration of proposed structure plan, lot 33 Hopkinson Road, Carter. Can I please have a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Coles. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Strange. Is there anybody opposed to this motion?
Madam President, not opposed, but I do have a question, if I may.
Councillor Mack, yes.
I'd just like to ask, what is the risk here of this going to state and us losing our control to have a say in this matter?
Councillor Mack, this item is not due to go to SAT. It is to go to the Outer Metropolitan DAP to be dealt with. What we have before us is, actually no, it's a WAPC, sorry. What we are voting on is the recommendations that we put forward to the WAPC on the item of the structure plan that we have been presented with. Director, have you got any more you'd like to add to the response?
No, that clarifies it. Structure plans are very clearly the remit of the WAPC to ultimately determine. We're charged with providing a recommendation as well as a planning assessment, and that's what this item seeks to do tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Is
that
there any
clarification.
councillor opposed to the motion?
Madam President, can I ask a question on that, please? The recommendation that's to go to council, on behalf of council to WAPC, is that the one on page 167 at the top? Or is that still open to information? Or is it still open to being sorted? Is that finalised?
Through you, Madam President. So the recommendation is for refusal as per part 2. What we've said under part 3 is 3C, a schedule of proposed modifications that are required should, despite the recommendation for refusal, the WAPC be supportive of the proposed structure plan. One of those modifications does reference that diagram that we've sketched. So just to be clear, the recommendation would be for refusal, which if the WAPC supported that, that would end the structure plan and would not have any cause or effect. If the next move would be back to the applicant on whether they sought to have a state administrative tribunal review of that structure plan, but that would be against the decision of the Planning Commission.
I guess my question is, if it's possible to refuse as it currently is, however, the actual proposal from Shire get reviewed with councillors' input. So it'd be reviewed at a PCF before it's actually goes to WAPC. Would that be possible?
No, that wouldn't be possible.
For that to be possible, this motion would need to be deferred and for it to be discussed first. Is that correct?
we're actually required to provide our comments. We don't have any more time to be able to present this to a future council meeting.
That's disappointing. Thank you.
Councillors, is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously.
Madam President, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Madam President, I was going to ask, because there's people in the gallery for deputations, perhaps 10.1.6 is next, so the professional staff are able to go home once they hear it. Thank you.
Councillor Coles, I'm going to put a motion to adjourn this meeting. When I look around the table, councillors are tired. They are not fully understanding the information provided by the officers. So I will put the motion to adjourn this meeting until 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 21st of June. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Seconder, please. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is anybody opposed to this motion? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino and Councillor Coles. As I've already stated, it is after 10 p.m. We have dealt with 2 items off the agenda proper, and we have already been here for over 3 hours. When you look around the table, councillors are tired, the officers are tired, and the officers have been here for a full day and need to be able to travel home safely. It has been a large agenda, and it will not do any detriment to the items for council to come back Wednesday night and complete the agenda items that have not so far been dealt with. Thank you. Councillor Atwell, would you like to? Sorry. All those in favour of the motion? 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against? 1, 2, 3. Motion is carried 6-3.
And Madam President, before I apologise to the ratepayers, can you please have the votes recorded? And I apologise to the ratepayers for wasting time.
Minutes Secretary, can we please have the votes recorded? So I declare it closed.
Meeting's now adjourned.